Hey everyone, Grayson here. I just had my debate with Kent Hovind on evolution and the fossil record. So I think it went pretty well. I got to cover most of the points that I wanted to discuss. However, we didn't have time to get to necessarily everything that I wanted to go over. For example, we went over a lot of the fossil record stuff, but we didn't quite make it to any of the age of the Earth arguments, and I was really looking forward to those because I actually did some of the math and did the calculations for a lot of his arguments about things like um, the spin of the Earth slowing down or the sun shrinking in size, and a lot of these things where he will throw out this as if it's some kind of defeater for the age of the Earth can't be billions of years old, but I don't think that he's actually done the math on it. So for a lot of those ideas, I actually did the math, and so that actually, you know, I wish that we had gotten to that part. I don't know if we'll have a part three when that'll be. I had wanted to do the part three, maybe focusing more on cosmology and the Big Bang, but the age of the Earth is good too. So far, not a lot of the creationists are coming out. I guess nobody wants to hop in the conversation, unfortunately. Um, the last time I had, hold on, my dog is coughing over here in the corner. So the last time that I had one of these live streams, I had a bit more brave creationists who wanted to come in and actually discuss these ideas. But that's okay too. I could talk about, some of the points that maybe I didn't get to talk to get to in tonight's debate. Um, like Kent likes to say that the spin of the Earth is slowing down, for example. Um, However, when we actually look, it doesn't really work out in his favor very well because we actually observe that the spin of the Earth has been speeding up since the year 2016. So I don't think that Kent is aware of this, and I was looking forward to drawing his attention to that fact. Um, but it was not meant to be tonight. Even accounting for the average rate for the slowing down of the Earth's spin, we can simply calculate the rate that it would need to be spinning to start throwing material off of the surface of the Earth would need to be, so fast that the length of one day was about an hour and a half. And we can do the calculations and see that 4.5 billion years ago, the speed of the Earth's spin was, about only half of that would be necessary to throw things off the Earth. And that when you had multicellular life existing on the Earth, the this the day was still only 22 hours long or 19 hours. I mean, it was not what we would need in order to have what Kent says would happen, and things would start flying off. So his math is off on that. Bubblegum, I see you in the live comments. So if you want, you can click on the link to join the stream, and maybe we can get into the conversation. Um, the other aspects for the age of the Earth, like Kent likes to bring up, is the fact that he says that the sun is shrinking, um, which is just blatantly not true. The sun both shrinks and grows about like 2 kilometers in a cycle of about 11 years. So the sun is not shrinking. He says that the sun is burning through its fuel, which we'll try to ignore the fact that the sun doesn't burn any fuel because burning is a specific chemical process that requires oxygen. The sun is fusing its fuel, but we'll just say it's consuming its fuel, right? That'd be a more accurate term. So even if you account for the consumption rate of the sun's fuel, right? You say that okay, it's losing about 5 million tons of mass per second. Okay, now Kent says that, and he knows that it sounds like a lot, but he ignores what the mass of the sun actually is. So I did the calculation and I ran it myself. And you can see that if you take 5 million tons, okay, per second, and then you convert that to years, and then you multiply by 5 billion years, like we'll make this thing run for 5 billion years. How much of the sun's fuel has it consumed? And you can see it's only about 0.034% of the sun's mass. So the sun can easily continue nuclear fusing for 5 billion years without even burning 1% of its mass. So his age of the earth arguments just fall apart when you just actually do the math involved. Let's see, it looks like we might have a question in the live chat. Um, it says about the flood. How many gallons of water would have been necessary to overwhelm all of the earth? Where did this water go after the flood if this all happens? So, unfortunately, there are no creationists who have had the bravery to join the discussion at this moment to take that question. But from my understanding of what Kent likes to talk about, Kent will just say, "Well, all the water is that we have now is necessary to is all that you need," because he just says if you flatten the crust of the earth, so you get rid of all the continents, then all the water we have now can easily submerge all of the land if it's just flattened out. So that's his kind of canned response for that, which is kind of easy to debunk because the earth was not flattened out. There's no evidence for that, either biblically or in the geologic evidence. We see, it looks like we have someone that looks like they wanting to join soon. We'll see if we don't get anyone in here to have any argument. Maybe we'll call this one early, but we'll go on a little bit longer. Somebody asked, "Will all of this science matter when I die?" Um, yes, it will still matter because there will still be humans around that are increasing our scientific understanding of the universe, and all of these understandings will still be reflecting of a universe that will continue to exist after my death. If you mean, will it matter to me personally? Obviously not, because I will be dead. So nothing will really matter to me at that point, as I will no longer be existing. So obviously not. If you're trying to just get into some sort of existential discussion, um, I'm an optimistic nihilist. Obviously, I don't think that many of these things will matter when we're dead, but I'm not dead right now, and so I can, have enjoyment from discussing and learning about these topics now while I'm alive. Somebody said, "Grayson, will you consider that having a live discussion with astrophysicist Dr. Hugh Ross about old Earth creation and the Big Bang Theory?" Yeah, sure. I very much enjoy the concepts of the Big Bang Theory. I don't know Dr. Hugh Ross, but I'm open to have a conversation with just about anybody. That's why I have an open invitation to whoever wants to join this conversation and discuss these topics. Let's see. Somebody said that they did the math and we would need an additional 8.9 trillion cubic kilometers of water to cover Mount Everest. Where did it come from and where did it go? Good point. I always appreciate people when they do the math. Um, Somebody said, then God just cast a spell and create all this water. Yeah, I mean, I don't think that the flood model really holds up to most scientific scrutiny. Now, somebody said that my spirit will live on after my death, either one or two places. Well, I don't really believe in a spirit or a soul. I don't really see any reason to think that those things exist. I think that I will just continue to go back into non-existence, the same place that I was before I was born. I did not exist. Therefore, after I die, I will also not exist. Uh, doesn't really strike me as, I mean, that's like the most sensible, logical explanation for death. So I don't see any reason to believe in a spirit or a soul. Um, Let's see. The very fact that any of us exist is a miracle. But you don't believe in miracles, and they say I don't exist now. um, that's nonsensical to me to read. I mean, I obviously exist now. I think, therefore, I am. I don't believe that the fact that I exist now is a miracle, and I do not believe in miracles. That's correct. I only believe in supernatural. I don't believe in supernatural processes. He says that that is what I just said, that I don't exist, which is clearly not the case. Um, I I go back to nothing, as in after I die, I no longer exist, the same as before I was born. Oh, here we go. Finally got some people that want to join in on the conversation. Welcome, Bubblegum, and welcome, KC.
Grayson. How many
Hey,
times
that's
do I have
right,
to
man.
teach you
Don't wear
this?
it out.
How many times do I have to teach you this lesson, old man? Dogs are my arena. You will never defeat me in dogs.
I
Anyway,
just did, actually.
no, here, your dog was the basal breed. Yeah,
Hey, yeah.
yeah, that dog has been around since the 60s. So I was shocked that you proposed a dog it's a mixed dog, by the way, from the 60s, and you're proposing this is the ancient breed. Holy damn. That's
I'm not
worse than
referring to any dog from the 60s.
you said the basal.
Yeah, a basal Eurasian dog, as in like one that exists in the fossil record.
The basal breed that exists is a breed that was made in the 60s.
No,
It's a
I'm
mixed dog.
talking about fossils from like 10,000 plus years ago.
What fossil? What fossil are you talking about?
Fossil dogs from 10,000 plus years
Yeah,
ago.
okay. Link me to this quote unquote fossil
So
that's
you don't
named the
believe
basal.
that there are any fossil dogs that have ever been found from more than 10,000 years ago?
That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying there's no dog in the fossil record called the basal because the basal was made in the 60s.
No. Basal is an adjective. It's not a proper noun. Basal is describing their
So it's not a
characteristics.
proper transition. So you're not talking about proper transitional. You're just saying dog. Well, you're just saying a class.
Yes, an ancient dog would be an example of a transition.
I asked you for the name. I didn't ask you for a transition. I asked you for the name of a transitional. So I'm
Hey,
asking for a
Grayson. Hello.
specific.
Yeah, hey, Casey.
Hey, this is actually Kennedy from yesterday.
Oh, okay.
But that's what I go short by. Just wanted to say quickly. Sorry to cut you off, corporate. Appreciate the dog question, and I'll let you get back to it. And I'm going to be here for maybe 2 minutes. Just wanted to say, Grayson, appreciate you debating. Watched it. And I just wanted to know how you. I mean, how do you feel, and like, in terms of reflection, thoughts. Like my only question, because I want to convene with you and talk with you more for sure, because I think you and I can definitely learn from each other for sure. But I'm curious, how do you feel about if when you talk to people that believe in creationism, do you ever feel like you get into a point where there's a difference in perception of reality where you feel like you are stuck in a loop, or you feel like you have to have another conversation in order to get out of it? That's
I've definitely felt that way with bubblegum here multiple times.
no,
It does happen, but honestly, I'm the kind of guy that like I really enjoy having conversations with people that think like radically differently. I like freaks and weirdos, and I like hearing their perspectives. I just kind of find it interesting, and kind of the same way that you like find a car crash interesting and you can't help but look at it when you pass by it. It's just something that's fascinating to me. Like, how can somebody actually think these things? And, getting to the base of, what they actually believe and think. And then when you come up with an argument and then they can't even seem to like process the logic, or they refuse to contemplate it, it does get frustrating at times. Like, I've had this exact conversation before with bubblegum here about how genetics absolutely proves that dogs came from wolves, and he
right.
just will.
He's literally just saying DNA. He's just saying evolution is true because DNA. That's his
Well,
argument.
if I can finish my quick question,
Oh my god, it's a non
the reason
sequitur.
I
You've
asked
been
it,
through this, Jason.
yeah, I'll be real quick, and I'll be out of here, and then corporate, you can just go at it. Because I'm glad you asked that, and the analogy with the cars is so interesting. Like, you find the car crash fascinating, which from my perspective is like for professor vibes. You know, like the person who is a professor is someone who's able to take any person who is not sure about where they are and educate them. Like, you are a fantastic educator of, I don't know what your credentials are, where you come back, but like, it seems like you've studied biology, and it seems like you'd be able to teach it in a class, in an actual class format. And the reason I find that so fascinating is because, like, I also study biology, but I care about the politics, right? So like, when you think about a car crash, it's fascinating for you to see it, but for me, I'm like, how do we prevent that from happening, and why did we even let that happen in the first place? That for me is how I think about evolution. Like, it is fascinating when people bring it up and ask the question, but if you can see the deeper realms of like, why are people doing this in the first place, because from my perspective, that helps get into like where you feel like you're in a loop. That's where it can get into a deeper realm, if that makes sense. Because if you're stuck in a loop of reality, you're now in a place of like, well, this is why we're stuck in this reality. But that
Oh,
can be annoying and difficult. But I'm just curious about where you like how you delve into when you get into that space. Are you just more of a, do you want to be more educating? Is that like sort of a goal and like a, I guess, a passion that you have in mind, to educate and be there for any question, or do you have something else in mind?
I think that what I really enjoy doing is addressing like what I would consider misinformation and sort of debunking pseudoscientific claims. So if I can get to the point where, I've, to any rational person listening, I've established why the other person's ideas do not make sense, even if they refuse to change their beliefs, which, many people will do just for other reasons other than logic. Um,
Mm-hmm.
then if I can, clearly demonstrate using like logic or evidence why their position is nonsensical and unfounded, then I'm pretty happy with that. I just like to address the actual ideas and like debunk the pseudoscience.
Oh, all right. And this is my last statement, and then I'm out of here, because I love that, and I think
Well,
you and I are gonna
Kenny,
have
real
fun.
quick, I do think that you actually have an interesting interaction with Bubblegum Gun here because, to my knowledge, he was not raised a Christian, and he is sort of politically kind of an exception in a strange kind of situation. But he has come to the conclusion not of Christianity, but he has come to the conclusion of he rejects evolution even further than Kent does. I mean, he does not believe that dogs evolved from wolves, but he is a polytheist. So I think that you would have a very interesting
Well,
interaction.
yeah, I would be very interested about, without going into that. I'm sure you can. I mean, link them to me. Give him my
He's in
channel,
the
and
chat
like,
right now.
yeah, it's
yeah,
me.
hit me. Never Game Over. I've also debate. I debated Kent, and my co-host Evan did as well, and we'll be chatting with them more because we're starting to get established for a new channel. But yeah, I mean, I would love to. I grew up with a lot of people who believed in some form of a what I would used to call like a force god. You know, like some form of an non-anthropomorphic being that organizes things in a particle way, but doesn't have personhood. That's wow. I grew up with a lot of people who would find ways to fiddle with that, and so that's also why it's hard for me to understand how people deny like the science and evolution of it, because I'm like, that doesn't have to conflict with God or your religion. And that's why I focus more on the political side of it, because when you said you care about like denaturing ideas and misinformation, like I'm right there with you, and why I think I want to, especially as two people of color, like convene with you more, because like I really think that part of denaturing misinformation has to do with some of these underlying reasons politically as to why we feel, because as Americans and Westerners, to fight each other about information, you know, like this is not something everywhere else in the world does. And depending on how much you want to like scope out from what we're doing relative to other people, if you like, if you don't have a focus, for example, on foreign policy or on like market structures, economics, if that's not the map you put on to the argument that we're having, of course it would not seem like it's relevant. But when I watch debates like you and people who are doing well and like making the logical arguments and just fucking owning it, right? And then you get stuck in whatever box that Kent or someone puts you in, it's because these underlying conditions that like force that in the first place. It's not something that's logic. You can't logic your way out of it because that's sociological, identical. Like this person believes in it because they see themselves as a part of it, and they don't know who they are without it, sort of thing. Like that gets into some of this stuff, and why I'm into the space, because I want to like bring that into the arguments from all the smart, intelligent, wonderful people that I see able to educate, and hopefully it has an influence. And I love talking with you all, so I'm hoping that we can chat more, but I'm not going to be here long. I'm here to just listen and see what you all feel about your debate. But I think you did a fucking great job. You could be a professor. I don't know if you are, but you would do well as one. And I'm sorry that Kent just didn't give you ground, you know, and he never will, and people like that don't. But I hope that you know that you did a fantastic job, and that in the future, if you ever feel like you're getting stuck, always, you know, in your own space, and maybe just dive into some of the sociological reasons as to why people like Kent believe, so that you don't feel as stuck, or he can't force you to go down the chickens and cows and you believe in a religion route as he does with everybody.
Hey, well, thanks,
Thank
Kennedy.
you.
I appreciate the compliments very much, man.
And thank you for giving me time.
So, Bubblegum, are you still there?
Yeah, I'm still here. So your claim was that the basal. Well, you're saying that the basal you're presenting isn't an actual breed, but more of some sort of so what are you saying? Like a.
It's the base of the tree.
Okay.
Or it's more basal than current modern breeds.
No, because you're not talking about the basal breed. Okay, the basal breed is a dog from the 60s. Clearly, it's not the freaking. It's not the transitional.
I'm talking about ancient dogs with basal characteristics.
Yeah. What is the name of this breed? I want to know the name of the breed. So
you just want an example of an ancient dog fossil?
No, I want the actual breed. I don't want this hypothetical BS. I want you to present an actual fossil with an actual breed attached, with an actual name of the breed attached to it.
Well, it would just be Canis familiaris.
That just means freaking domestic dog.
Yeah, because we're talking.
That's a dishonest answer.
Dog.
That's a dishonest answer, Grayson.
It's not.
Yes, it is. You're just saying
why would
dog.
they name
the ancestor? The transitional is dog. That's your freaking answer.
Yeah, it's obvious.
It's dishonest. It's dishonest.
No, it's not.
You know
it's
that,
obvious the answer.
You know you can't name a freaking transitional because there are no transitionals.
No,
that's why that's exactly why I put the word name inside that question. That's exactly why I put the word name in there.
So
because you can't name one.
If humans have not named it, then it does not exist. That's your logic.
It does not exist, therefore they cannot name it.
Okay, there is no logical correlation. Just because something is not named, it does not negate its existence. That's not logical.
Look, if you're gonna conjure up hypothetical fossils, that's
not
okay.
Hypothetical. We find ancient dog fossils.
We do not find transitionals. Yes, we find dead dogs, but we do not find transitionals.
Do you understand how genetics works? To where like any dog that had children from thousands of years ago would necessarily be the ancestor of all dogs living today.
It would be the ancestor. It would be the ancestor of its own breed, unless, of course, it was mixed.
No,
it wouldn't be
the breeds are like diversity that arises within the dog species.
Well, if that does happen, present a transitional. If you can't present a transitional, then that does not happen.
New breeds being created in the last 100 years
by mixing them.
By mixing them and by other means. I mean, we have new breeds of dogs.
That's the only way we do it.
Mixing previous ones.
We only mix them.
No.
That's the only way we get new breeds is by mixing them, and they're not pure breeds. We call them mixed breeds.
Yeah, that's not true. We can create new breeds of dogs through other
We
means other than mixing pre-existing breeds of
we
dogs.
do not. We literally do not take a Chihuahua and turn it into a German Shepherd. We do not take purebred Chihuahuas.
Yes, I
Uh,
agree
uh,
that we do not do something as ridiculous as take a Chihuahua and turn it
Well,
into a
that's
German
what you're
Shepherd.
saying. That's
That is
saying
not what I'm saying. I
you're
just
literally
literally
you
said that
literally
that is
just said
not what
that.
I'm saying.
You
The
literally just
fact
said
that
that.
you think that that's what I'm saying just shows your misunderstanding.
Are you talking about mixed breeds?
No,
Okay, then what? Then what are you talking about then?
I'm
If
talking about
not,
new breeds of dogs over the last 100 years that are not the results of breeding of mixing previously existing breeds.
okay, how did he get this new breeds? And can you name one? For example, give me an example.
Artificial selection.
What are you talking about, dude?
Yeah,
Yes,
you can breed
we have
things.
artificial selection for mixing dogs. That's how we get new breeds. But we never done taking pure breeds, a population of pure breeds, and turn them into a different breed. That has never happened.
All
So
right,
what
well,
the fuck
we've
are you
done it.
talking about?
We've done it at least with foxes. You would agree with
No,
that?
no, we did not. What all
We
we did
have
with the
made
fox?
domesticated breeds of foxes.
No, all we did was made them friendly. They're still the same breed. We did not change them genetically. We changed them socially, yes, but not
And
genetically.
morphologically, they're different.
No, they're not. If you consider their floppy ears morphological change, that's like saying me holding my hand up and me holding my hand down is a morphological change.
No,
That's
because you
ridiculous.
holding your hand in a different position is not a genetic change that you pass on to your offspring. But the floppy ears is literally based on the genetics of the fox and it is passed down. So it's a
It's literally
genetic
based
change.
on. It's literally just based on muscles not being used.
Based on genetics, yes.
No, it's based on ear muscles not being used because
So
they're not
you
in the
don't
wild.
think that the floppy ears are the results of genetics?
That is not a genetic change.
It is a genetic change. It's passed on generation by generation. That is a genetic change.
Bruh, them holding their ears up and them holding their ears down isn't due to genetics. It's just
It
them not
is.
using that muscle. It's a
It's
weakened
passed
muscle.
on from generation to
Yes,
generation. You would agree with that,
they pass a weakened muscle.
which is
Yes, they're not.
genetics. Yes.
No, it's just they're not exercising.
How do you pass on a
They're
weakened muscle without it being a change in the genome? You're
the
not
same
making
way.
sense.
The same way you get fat people in America.
No. And obesity does have a genetic predisposition component to it.
Yeah, it's laziness. But nobody.
Well,
Nobody would
laziness
just.
also has a genetic predisposition
Yeah,
component.
nobody's gonna.
All of these things that you're describing do have genetic components.
Yeah, nobody's gonna say a freaking a deformation or a defect is a freaking evolution. Unless you're
Yeah,
claiming
it's a genetic change.
no, dude. First off, this isn't leading to a new breed, as you first claim. It's not a new breed; it's still the same breed. And the what is observed is their muscle loss. So it's not even genetic. It's just them being lazy.
All right. Well, there are also genetic changes related to tameness and like friendliness to humans. Those are also reflected in the genetics of dogs, and we can breed those changes into foxes as well.
Yeah, you can turn anything into a dog. You can turn a bear into a dog. You can even turn an alligator and even a fish into a dog. Make them petify them. Make them into pets. Just because you can turn.
We've done that with foxes.
Yeah, just because you can turn them into a pet doesn't mean you change their breed.
We have changed the morphological appearance of these foxes, and they've created new kinds of coats in addition to the floppy ears. And yes, they are a different breed than the wild foxes.
They're not a different breed, and the change you're talking about is no different than me holding my hand up and me holding my hand down. They're just lazy. Wow.
Yeah, no, I don't think that you know what you're talking about in regards to.
I don't think you do. Dogs are my arena. That's why you couldn't get. That's why you can't name one. I know you can't name a transition.
Yeah, I have named them actually.
You named the
you don't
basil, and I
acknowledge
told you
them.
why. Yeah, you named the basil, and I tell you why the basil is wrong.
No, you misunderstood what I meant about basil, and you thought I was talking about a different thing than I was talking about. Your misunderstanding is not my responsibility.
Then present to me this dog breed, which is called the basil. This fossil of the
there
dog
are
breed.
basal Eurasian dogs that we find fossils of.
Present to me the fossil of the specific dog breed.
Okay, you want me to go to you right now and bring the fossil?
No, just give me a link to the fossil that is called a basal.
Yeah, I'm streaming right now. I'm not going to go Google things and do your homework for you.
Well, I have, and all you get is the basal from the 1960s.
Well, then clearly you need to use Google better to find what we're actually talking about. We're not talking about a
I think
breed called a basal breed. We're
no.
talking about
What you got to
dog
do is stop
fossils that
lying
have
about
basal
this evolution
characteristics.
nonsense. You got to stop lying about this evolution nonsense. You don't have any transitionals, so be honest about that.
Go
There is no
find dog fossils.
there is no
from
transition.
over 10,000 years ago. Those are the transitions.
Those are just not transition. You just
You know what makes them
imply
transitions? The features that they have are mosaics between Dalmatians and wolves.
there aren't any mosaics.
There are. You can find them yourself. Just go look for fossils of dogs from more than 10,000 years ago. They're mosaics.
Just admit you don't have a transitional.
I've just provided the information that you need to find them.
I searched up your answer, and all I got was a 1960s dog.
If you do something wrong, you're going to get wrong results.
It doesn't exist, Grayson. Just admit it. It doesn't exist.
It does exist.
And
I'll
it didn't
provide
even
it next time for you if you want.
All right, sure. Anyways,
But I'm not going to actively Google and do research and have a bunch of dead air time on a stream because that's not interesting for anybody. So if you want to move on, and next time I'll provide you with these fossil dogs that you think don't exist, I'm happy to provide those. Just I'm not going to go and Google stuff live.
I'm not looking for fossil dogs. I'm looking for a transitional.
That is the transitional.
That is not a transitional. You don't have a transitional.
It's transitional because it has mosaic features of both Dalmatians and wolves.
Just because the dog, the dead fossil is a dog doesn't mean it's a transitional. Okay?
If it has mosaic features, that's a strong argument for the case that it is a transitional. Here's a Atheist
Junior. It looks like a dog.
Is joining the stream here. Hey, AJ.
Oh, AJ again.
Hello.
Hey, is that dad just too much for the peasants to understand? That's why the name isn't there.
What? I don't understand your question.
Remember in our debate, and I asked you this very same question, and your answer was, "Well, the data isn't there because that's just too much information for them to grasp." So I guess those peasants
is stuck on the same point he's always stuck on with Dalmatians and transitions.
Oh no, I debated Atheist Junior before on the Monday debate.
What was the question?
He just thinks that he wants you to name the breed that was transitional between Dalmatians and wolves. And he thinks that if there is no breed that is named that is a transition, then that disproves evolution and means that the transition did not exist.
Yeah, and you're wrong that was my answer, because the answer I gave you is that the transition could be you could call the child of that first wolf part of the transition, because every offspring
laughable
from that wolf to the dog is part of the transition.
Oh yeah, the child. What is that? You can't name it, can you? It's just the child.
Wolf.
Oh wow. Oh yeah,
the wolf that was not an identical clone of its parents.
Bubblegum, I don't understand why you're so obsessed with the names that we arbitrarily give these things. Like, you think that just because somebody has named something, now it's more real than it was before it was named.
The names aren't arbitrary. The names are specific to it because they actually existed, and they didn't exist. So that's why you can't name them.
Human beings make up words.
Only that. AJ, that's not what the problem's about. You can't name them because they don't exist.
Names are words. These animals actually existed, whether we name them or not.
You can't.
Do you think my answer is fair, Grayson?
Yeah. I mean, I basically gave the same answer. I was saying, like, go find a go find a dog fossil from more than 10,000 years ago, and that's a transition between a wolf and any breed that exists nowadays, like a Dalmatian, which is essentially the similar answer as what you gave. I mean. So we're basically saying the same thing. It just Bubblegum refuses to acknowledge it, which is not a surprise to me. He has a bunch of kooky ideas.
Snake was right. Gave you a name of a dog breed.
Who?
Wolf breed. Snake was right during the debate. Gave you a
No,
name.
he didn't.
Yeah, he did.
No, he did. He gave me I think it was the Great Dane.
No, it wasn't Great Dane.
What was
No,
it?
and I've had this conversation with Bubblegum before, and I've actually given him 4 names of things, and then he just says that, oh, I just said the Harlequin Great Dane, which was not a name that I provided, and he just ignores the names that I did provide.
No,
So
I did want to go
I know
over
that
your
it's not
names.
going to ever get through to someone like him.
I literally went over your names, the ones you did give.
No,
and
you
I-
didn't.
when I-
You
I would
addressed
prefer
fully
to
this
talk
Great
about the
Dane
actual
that I
debate.
never mentioned.
Well, yes, you did. You said the white antelope, the white antelope, and
Oh, the
I
white
asked you to-
antelope dog. Yeah, there's an example.
yeah, and I asked you to bring up a picture of the white antelope. You couldn't do it.
Yeah, because when was photographs invented, man? But like after Dalmatians existed.
Oh my god, dude! The point is, there's no fossils, dude.
What? Okay, what's your
In
explanation?
the
And
image there was just the image
explicitly
of a
earlier
Dalmatian.
today, just a few minutes ago, when I brought up fossils, then you said, I don't care about the fossils. I'm asking about a name. And now you're saying, oh, the fossils don't exist after I've given you a name.
No, look, the names are meant to name a specific fossil because evolution happens in populations. You understand, right? You
Snake
understand
told
evolution.
you the
I don't
individual
think you
fossils
understand
have
evolution.
numbers for the names.
I don't think you understand evolution, how evolution works. Evolution happens in
That is the
populations.
biggest piece of projection I've heard all night.
I don't
And
think you do.
debated Kent
Yeah, that's
freaking
laughable.
Hovind.
Okay,
laughable.
evolution happens in populations. Give me the name of one of these the population of these breeds.
Why would we name it as a breed when it's the species Canis familiaris?
That
You
just
breed.
means
Why would we
domestic
add a
dog. Dude.
subbreed to describe it?
That
Breed
just
is
means domestic
shorthand for
dog.
Stop it, over talking. Breed is shorthand for the word breeding or breeders, like how we domesticated dogs and we create breeds for people to own as pets. You're talking about animals that existed long before domestication and asking for a breed. It's a nonsensical question. And I would prefer to talk about Grayson's debate rather than you disrespectfully taking up all of his time on his channel. Asshole.
Dude, you're just upset you can't answer this question.
Yeah, so
Nobody could answer your question ever. It's impossible.
It's impossible. Good. Thank you for admitting it.
Okay,
Yeah,
hold on.
I freely admit it.
Just because Atheist Junior did join the stream, so I do want to ask him about his thoughts on the debate that I just had, since this is an after show. Maybe later we can talk about Dalmatians for the 100 millionth time later.
All right, I gotta head out. I was doing something else. All right.
Yeah, all right. Yeah, always a absolute pleasure.
Well, thank goodness for that. Okay, so I thought you did an outstanding job, which is what I expected, so I'm not surprised. But, I did. I haven't watched the full part of the debate. I turned it on about halfway through, about when there was about 45 minutes left in the open discussion, about 30 minutes left. So I saw a good chunk of it. And I'm going to go back and watch the rest of it. I was going to do that right now, but then I remembered that you might have an after show on, and I wanted to get in before it was over. But I really thought you had some great questions with Kent. I noticed that he was very desperate to not talk about mosaic fossils. He kept changing the subject until he ran out the clock, which is classic Hovindian methods. And he was really, I was laughing when he said, oh, I'll do research on Chlamydomonas because I have a video on my channel. I'll link this if you want, of 5 or 6 different examples of people bringing this up to Kent during a debate and him saying, oh, I'll do more research on that. Oh, and he never does. It's just bullcrap.
Yeah, I've come up with, I don't know if I've definitely seen people bring up Chlamydomonas to him before.
I did.
But I've seen this with other examples, such as like people bring up the Gaia parallax observations for like star distances, like going up to like 100,000 years, like light years. And he'll say, oh, I'll look into that. But then he just seems to forget about it and just go on and make the same points again. And it's the same thing with him saying the geologic column doesn't exist. Yeah. And then you point out, like, it doesn't exist anywhere on Earth. And then you say, oh, well, it exists right here. And then you said, oh, well, yeah, I knew about that, but it exists right there. But like, it's just a coincidence and it doesn't exist anywhere on Earth. And then he just goes and repeats the same thing you just explicitly proved is not true.
Yeah, and he did a similar thing when you brought up Tiktaalik, which is always a fantastic example to bring up. And he basically said that I don't believe you, which I'm sorry, but if you're going to be debating on evolution, you should already understand, even if you don't accept the facts, you should understand what the other side claims about their finding and at least be familiarized with that. Not say, I'm going to do more research about Tiktaalik. I think that's unacceptable for somebody who's been debating about evolution for 30 years, because that's a major talking point of our side, so to speak. But it's a good one because our talking points are actually true. And you brought up they found, I love how you brought up how they knew where to look. They actually narrowed it down from 3 different stratigraphic layers, and those would be based on different geographical locations that they traveled to on Earth. I think the first one was like in the United States, in the Northeast, and then where the I forget the name of the professor that found it with his colleague, where they actually lived. And so they were able to check there in their free time, and it wasn't the right spot. And then they eventually narrowed it down to, I think, an island in the Arctic.
It's like the far north of Canada.
Yeah, the Nunavut Islands, the north of Canada. And and it was exactly where they figured it would be, because they knew that this is where we can dig to find this stratigraphic layer, because they could narrow it down and bracket the years, talking about millions of years of matching the stratigraphic layers that they would find him in, and they found it. Which, if you think about it, knowing where to look, even being close to find an ancient, quote unquote, skeleton of an animal is amazing that somebody could do that. You know what I mean? How could you do that other than just blind luck? But he frames that as if they found it. First of all, he said he didn't believe you, but I've seen him frame stuff like this as if, oh, well, they're just, of course they found what they were looking for because it's a big conspiracy,
Yeah, I mean, the only thing that he can fall back on is either it's a coincidence and they just happen to find the exact kind of mosaic fossil that they predicted they would find it in the exact place that they predicted they would find it. It's either a coincidence or it's a conspiracy, and they're making it up and they're faking the fossils, and everyone's in on it. I mean, it's like when you get into that point, I think it's pretty evident for most like people listening that he is essentially conceding at that point. I mean, I thought that I got more out of Kent than I was expecting this evening, where he was talking about, like, he even admitted speciation events. He said that diversification can happen within kinds, even to where you get to the point where they can't interbreed. And I'm like, you just did it, Kent. You just proved evolution.
Yeah, and I did that with my last debate. If you've seen that, where I walk through it with him, asking questions about squirrels, and I basically tell him, I basically build a tree of life with squirrels, and then I say, Kent, well, this is basically just like the tree of life in your slides. It's just extrapolated out to more animals than just one example of squirrels. And he was like, no, that's you've gone bonkers. That's what he's telling me.
Yeah, I wish I tried to make this point as clearly as I could, but I feel like maybe I could have made it better, that the mosaic fossils that we find are only for like animals that have similar like DNA today. Like so like I feel like that by itself pretty much proves evolution. Like if you have 2 animals that have a similar DNA sequence, you can reasonably expect to find a mosaic fossil with characteristics of both of them in the fossil record. And when we find those fossils, I mean, that right there, that fact should prove to any logical person that macroevolution happened.
I thought it was pretty funny when Kent says, yeah, we find animals today that would be called mosaic. And I'm like, yeah, we do. I mean, I don't think that term is correct, because mosaic describes fossils and not living animals. But I mean, I guess colloquially you could use that term. And then he, I don't know if I need to go back and watch more of the debate, but I don't know if he conceded to you that would you find mosaic fossils, because he certainly denied Tiktaalik existing, which is very interesting, because it's like, well, why are you denying that it existed? Is it because if you accepted that it would prove evolution happens, or are you just denying it because you have to disagree with everything the opponent says?
Yeah, and
I thought that was
I
funny.
kind of wished, I don't know, I thought about pressing him on this idea of like what mosaic animals are you talking about? Like I would assume that all he would bring up is platypus, which I don't even necessarily agree that that's a mosaic creature. Like their bills are not the same as birds' beaks. Like they are clearly the same as echidna's bills, which are just monotreme mammals. So I don't even necessarily concede that there are mosaic creatures that currently exist. So
Yeah, it's
I thought about
incorrect.
pushing back on it, but I thought that maybe like that would just get off too much on a tangent, and I ultimately decided against it. But
Well, you were already running out of time, which was his goal. I think that's what it seemed to me. His goal was to get you to talk about anything but that subject, and then just run the clock down. And he did. There's two things that Kent does that really annoy me. One of them is he accuses the opponent of making these leaps in logic, but it's always him that makes the leap. He's like, whatever the person's talking about, always be like, so, that's enough to convince you that a frog and a pine tree are related. I didn't say that. I never said that. You're accusing me of that. We have other things that can prove that, but you're jumping to that point. And he said that like the TikTok example or one of your examples, that's enough to prove to you about the charts being correct. It's like, well, no, that's one piece of evidence or one line of evidence. There are other lines that corroborate and cross-confirm it. You're the one straw manning me by saying that, I just got convinced by one argument, whereas you got convinced by one book that all this other stuff happened, Kent.
yeah,
And
I mean, anytime that Kent really doesn't have a response, he seems to fall into, so you believe that that's evidence that whales and pine trees are related, So like he kind of ignores the point that you're trying to make. Like if you're trying to make the point that beneficial mutations do happen, and then you successfully make that point, like I did tonight's debate, and Kent didn't have a response because he had to admit that that's a beneficial mutation that added new information. And when he's confronted with that, he said, but you think that that's evidence of like whatever crazy thing like is related to whatever other thing. Like, so he kind of just like, shifts the goalposts as his main strategy.
yeah, and he was moving the goalposts so hard when you brought up the Chlamydomonas thing, because all he asked for was a single-celled animal going to multicellular, which literally you're like the 8th person to give him this example. And then he's just like, he did the same exact thing he did to me saying, well, is it a colony? And you're like, no, it's not a colony for these reasons. And then he's like, well, how does it reproduce? And you're like, very similar to how humans reproduce, which he sort of stumped me with that question because it was my very first debate and I didn't know it as well as you do. But, and then he's like, well, what happens next? He kept kicking the can down the road, and then until he's saying, well, you would have to have trillions more steps to turn a single-celled animal into a human. That's not what he was asking, and that was a goalpost shift. Like Kent doesn't even shift the goalposts. It's like the goalposts are attached to a Segway that he can control with a remote control, and it just moves back and forth whenever he wants, in whatever direction he feels like it needs to.
Yeah, I'll just welcome P-Town to the discussion, and just to address just two quick things that I see in the comments about platypus. So somebody said that platypus have venomous glands with spikes on their rear legs. I don't really know why that would be an example of a mosaic feature. I mean, what other kinds of animals have venomous spikes on the backs of their rear legs? I think maybe koalas potentially, which is another kind of mammal closely related to monotremes. So again, it's not a mosaic feature. It's a basal shared feature or a convergent evolution feature. These are not mosaic. Somebody said that they lay eggs. Well, that doesn't disqualify them as a mammal, and it's not a mosaic feature either because we evolved from amniotes. So none of these things are good examples to justify why a platypus would be mosaic. And yes, I do agree with Pure Aussie Gold in the comments. I really do need to figure out screen sharing so that I can actually show some visuals for some of these things, because I don't think Kent is really getting it without a visual. You kind of got to hold his hand through some of these concepts.
Well, that's what I thought was so impressive about your first debate, was that you did the whole thing without any slides. I don't know if you had slides in your intro, but
No,
I've not.
I never have used slides. Just it's kind of a result of my own laziness, honestly. I mean, like I'll write something out, but I don't really want to like go through a whole slideshow. I think that I can kind of get the points across without it, and it saves me some extra work.
Yeah, and I think the analog of that claw on the platypus, I think some people might compare it to like a scorpion stinger, but you're
Well,
right that
again, the exact type of venom would not be scorpion venom. I mean, people seem to think that all venom is created equal, but that's not true. The actual chemical identities of this venom is different, and we I don't think that platypus venom is chemically the same as scorpion venom.
yeah. Did you know that scorpions are fluorescent?
Yeah, yeah. Actually, one of the professors in the biology department of my undergrad actually is the main guy that did the research to prove their fluorescence, and his lab was very big on that. So I've actually met the guy that's done the work for that.
Oh, I think he was probably on the Veritasium video then. It's probably the same guy. I don't know if you've
Yeah,
seen
yeah.
that.
Yeah, I
That's
mean,
cool.
it's super interesting. Somebody
Yeah, because
brought it up earlier, asking about my credentials. I only have an undergraduate degree in biochemistry, but I just I like to read about these subjects, and whenever
dude,
creationists bring up um, good questions about them, and if I don't know the answer, then I will definitely go research to find the answer because I'm interested in the material. So, just kind of as a result of these discussions and my own kind of background reading, I've just read about this stuff before.
I mean, I don't have shit, and people still come to me for advice about debating Kent, I guess, for some reason. But because I always thought that, when it comes to the thing with Kent's degree, like, I think it's bad that he seems to be dishonest about his degree, but I don't have a degree either. And I mean, I still think that if you educate yourself about this subject, I think you can have an interesting debate, because I don't consider these to be scientific debates. I just consider it to be entertainment and sort of for fun.
Yeah. So we got just a couple points from the comments. Somebody is bringing up abiogenesis. I do kind of wish that one of these debates would bring up abiogenesis, because I really do have a great interest in abiogenesis, and I have more to say on that. But somebody else asked about what my take is on the common design point, which I would direct Andrew, if to go watch, because I actually bring that up tonight in my debate with Kent, and I brought up the fact that if common design is your answer for why we observe DNA similarities, if you say, oh, those similarities are because of common design, not common ancestry, then I think it's fair to say that common design should be able to make predictions about DNA similarities. So I brought up the point that I asked Kent very plainly, what would the common design prediction be for which organisms should be more closely homologous with their DNA? Goldfish and sharks, or goldfish and humans? What would you think as a common design proponent? And he said he evaded the question and refused to make a prediction because he knows that it disproves common design. He said, I will not make a prediction on that.
Well, what would common sense tell us? Kent loves common sense arguments so much, right?
Yeah,
Well,
so obviously what I'm fishing for is that, like, fish and sharks have a very similar common design, and yet the evolution prediction would tell us that humans and goldfish should be more closely genetically similar than sharks and goldfish, which is exactly what we observe. So that's the defeater for common design, is that it fails to make accurate predictions, whereas evolution does make accurate predictions in terms of predicting DNA homology.
So, Grayson, if you click on the comments, you can put them on the screen in the StreamYard window.
Oh, hey, there you go. Teaching me new things all the time.
Yeah.
That's great.
That's what I do. But can you put Colorado Bikers comment on the screen that's targeted at me?
Yes.
So I agree with you. I agree. But so I'm a pragmatist, and the way I look at things is that people are debating Kent. People are continuing to debate Kent. Grayson. No, I'm just kidding.
Yeah, it's all my fault.
But no, people are doing it. So the way I see it, if people are going to do it, then I think that I'm going to do what I can in my power as an influencer or whatever, somebody who is a YouTuber, and I talk with other content creators. I want to try and work with people to make sure that they do it the right way, what I consider to be the right way, and go in prepared. That's how I look at it, because I hate to see people going into these debates and falling for Kent's traps and, being nice to Kent. Oh, I hate that.
Well, I was trying not to, I try to walk a fine line where I don't want to be rude or interrupt Kent. I don't want to come across as being rude, but I also don't want to be like overly nice. Like,
yes, you do it the right
you'll
way.
never, I try to actively, not, apologize or be too, let him get away with too much. I try to be firm. But I also try to be polite. So I'm trying to walk a fine line. And I think that some of the like creationists at Standing for Truth channel appreciate that, because I don't really come across as like I'm throwing out insults or ad hominems or just being mean. I'm trying to focus on the actual like ideas and the science. So yeah, actually, speaking of, we have one of Standing for Truth fans and a creationist. Pure Aussie Gold said that this is one of the best debates of the year. So I really appreciate that, mate. I mean, yeah, not much more to say. I appreciate your comment.
Yeah, I was in the chat and they were saying things like that. But that rhymed. If you, of course, if you'd be interested, I'd be happy to have you come on my channel and talk about the debate, because those videos, people are really seeming to enjoy those. I'm going to be doing one. I don't know if you saw Evan's debate against Kent just the other day.
Yeah, I saw it was one of the best night or 2 nights ago.
I thought it was one of the best ones I'd seen in a long time.
Mm-hmm.
I was extremely satisfied. Well, I was on the Aftershow for that one. Of course you saw it.
Yeah. Well, I'm happy to do that and to like break down some of the points, because I did watch your video on my last debate, and so I'm definitely open to coming on and us kind of like breaking down this debate, watching it and pausing it and discussing. So totally open to do that. I will. I'll get my email to you. I made an email specifically for this channel of like critical based theory inquiries at gmail.com. So,
okay.
Oh, here we go. Speak of the devil, Standing for Truth in the comments section says the last debate of the year was the best debate of the year. So
I always make typos in my questions, so I will not say anything. But speaking of that, what did you think of my question that I asked to Kent? And thank you to SAT for asking it this time.
Well,
so I know it's a little off topic, but
yeah, I've got a little bit of mixed feelings on it, because I kind of knew that Kent was just going to evade the question.
Oh, of course.
And it does kind of allow him to make his points about Hitler or racism or whatever. I knew that he wasn't going to address the question. I think it's important to point out that he is misconstruing the like he's making misleading statements to imply that the race in regards to the Darwin's book is talking about human race. But so I think that's worth bringing up. But I knew that Kent was just going to evade it and then grandstand about evolution leads to racism.
Yeah, well, that question, it got carried over from the Evan debate because there wasn't time to ask it last time. So I wanted to get it in. But hey, Kent is always saying, people accuse him of being a liar, and he says, well, that's give me a specific example, which I guess that makes sense. So he's always asking for a specific example, and I can't really think of a more clean example of him just straight up being dishonest about something. He's saying, well, this is what this means, but it's simply not true that that's what it means. And Origin of Species, really, I mean, it doesn't even talk about humans. You could say that human species are included with the term favored races, but that book is about non-human animals. And so Kent, it's just, for me, it's worth it to see him sort of squirm and knowingly not be able to answer it, because he basically said it means both, which it doesn't. Just doesn't. Like,
so one of the things that in Evan's debate 2 nights ago, the question that I had asked, which didn't get asked to Kent, unfortunately, but it was one of those questions where I was also asking it because I wanted to see him squirm with the response, was that he's always saying that the the Earth is slowing down in its spin, and nobody disputes that. And I just really like, I wanted to ask him, are you aware of the fact that it is undisputed that the Earth's spin is speeding up, and it's observable since the year 2016? The Earth's spin has been speeding up, and the shortest day ever recorded was in August of 2022. Like that, like, so I just like totally like, I wanted to see him get his little mind blown when he realized that actually the spin of the Earth has been speeding up since 2016, and he seems completely unaware of that.
Well, first off, I don't believe you. Second of all, so you think that is that example? It's enough for you to deny the Bible, Grayson? We'll see about that judgment day. You'll be burning in hell. You awful.
Yeah, he'll say, "Oh, the Earth is spinning up," but does that prove that a banana and a whale are related?
Yeah, well, you'll be spitting in your grave when you're burning in hell, Grayson.
Oh. Yeah, P-Town. Did you catch the debate tonight with me and Kent?
I did pretty much all of it. I noticed that a lot of your talking points were stuff that you and I covered briefly, so I'm glad I helped you prepare for it, Grayson. I will admit, I did fall asleep there during the questions and answers. So, you guys are beating each other's drums pretty hard, and I'm a little groggy. I don't know if I can throw a fork in it this evening, but I wanted to call in and.
Well, hey, I mean, that's okay. I really appreciate when creationists will come on, because everyone knows I like having these discussions so much that I do enjoy when it's not just an echo chamber of everyone, saying you did a good job and I agree with what you were saying. I do like it when there's some kind of debate going on. So I see that there are some people in the chat that they want to have this debate in the chat, but they don't want to join in on the actual stream. So if the invitation is open, the link is pinned. Come join. You can do it on your phone, and you can actually have this discussion outside of the keyboard warrior modus operandi.
One of the comments that go ahead, Pete.
Well, I was just going to say, I don't really feel like I'm that equipped to talk evolution, but I feel like I do have to take a stand on a lot of things you guys are talking about. I don't know what mosaic fossils are. I could guess by you describing them, but I do think, just look at when The Origin of Species, the book, AJ. The new books printed just completely take out the rest of the title. And if you look at it, the beliefs of that time perpetuated by Darwin in his other books, it's clear that he was, even though he was supportive of abolition of slavery, he still believed they were evolved in a different lineage of human beings and not the equal of the white man. This seems like a fact to me when I've looked at it in the past. And the reason why you're so defensive is because he is a focal point, like a priest of your religion that you believe in. And that's why you find it so offensive. But that's the honest truth, AJ.
So are you saying that because, according to you, Darwin was a racist, that makes it okay for Kent to misrepresent what the original title of the book was, even if it did change? That's what my question was about.
Sorry, I missed the beginning part of that, AJ.
Are you saying that because you're saying Darwin was a racist? Okay, so for the sake of this question, I'll grant you that. Are you saying that because Darwin was a racist, that makes it okay for Kent to lie about what the meaning of the term favored races is in the original title of Darwin's book?
I wouldn't say he's lying. I would say that
he is.
I wouldn't go that far. But the fact that you would assume that it's lying, just read On the Origin of Species by Means of Natural Selection, or the Preservation of Favored Races in the Struggle for Life. The new books printed are still the same book, but they take out half the title. Why? Because it's racist. The title's racist, man. But I agree. I didn't say that Darwin was racist. I clarified. I even said that he was no, I didn't. I said he was in favor of abolishing slavery. He was, but he still didn't. He still believed that the black man and the white man were evolved under different lineages.
No, he did not.
But you're
100% wrong.
The favorite
you do too. You believe black people are black because they evolved to be black. It's simple,
What
right?
does that even mean?
Because I don't know, but I don't know how to describe it other than that. There was more sun, according to your religion that you believe, and that's why they're black, right? Or something like that, I imagine.
Were you going to
Because
say
it helped
something,
them in the
Grace?
sun.
Yeah, I was just going to ask P-Town, do you honestly think that the quote favored races in the title of Origin of Species is referring to human races? Do you honestly think that's true?
I no, just as Ken Hovind said, and specifically, it's not it's not excluding humans. It's that's all. It's not excluding humans. It includes them.
Yeah, and so
Would you agree?
like, the favored races among humans are not like races as in black, white, etc. Like those race in those terms is not a biological description, right? Like white and black and these kinds of things are not biological races. They're socially constructed. So like
Okay.
the favored races,
Why are all the
speaking,
new books? Why do all the new books take it out then? All the new prints of Charles Darwin's book. Why do they
Ask
change
the
the title
publisher.
if it's
they don't. Go look at
Yes,
the
they
sixth
do.
edition. Then, like, you can look at newer
Go
editions.
look at
They're still
Google,
in the
Chad,
title.
and you'll go see.
I looked on Amazon, and it appears the one on Amazon that just says the Origin of Species. And I'm not saying the title can't be misinterpreted as being racist because it is using a dialect from the 1850s. My only claim is that the meaning that Charles Darwin, the way he meant it, was favored races in the struggle for life. That means the struggle for life. Species or races of animals are struggling to stay alive. Some of them go extinct, and some of them don't. The ones who don't are favored by natural selection and mutation. And because nature is a brutal process that is going to favor some animals to survive and some aren't. It's very harsh.
But it's okay.
I
I mean, it's okay, I guess, for you to believe that there's black people because all the white people in that particular area with the lighter skin died and the other ones didn't. They were just because nature, as you say, is really horrible and rough.
Yeah.
And that's what you believe.
Nobody is
I
saying
don't really care about your straw man, and the fact that you want to turn it around as to talk about what I apparently believe just shows that you don't want to talk about my actual question, which is not about what I believe, and it's about the title of the book and Kent's misrepresentation, aka lie about it, to make Darwin sound racist.
Yeah, I'm gonna pass it to Colorado Biker because he just joined the stream. What's up? Are you there, Colorado Biker?
Oh, he's mute. He actually, yeah. I'm just kidding.
But anyway, AJ, I agree with you. Now that I think about what he does say, and he does specifically use it to point out that evolution in general is racist, and then he does it is a misnomer, or he does misrepresent. I agree with you. He does, but you got to understand that too. That in a way, from a Christian perspective, we are at war, and yeah, he does do a little stretch there. But to criticize him as much as you do, I don't think that's really fair. I don't think it's not that big of a stretch to say, especially if you read his other writings, that as far as we would define racism, it is what it is, AJ. Now,
did you hear my example in the debate where I said that the guy that created trigonometry could be a huge racist, and that would not affect whether or not trigonometry is true or not?
Right, but the guy who invented trigonometry isn't worshipped like Charles Darwin is in your community.
Yeah, I don't worship Charles Darwin.
As far as we would define worship, it sure certainly looks like it.
And actually, in several letters that Charles Darwin wrote on his journeys, he also wrote that he found racism he found the treatment of other races to be abysmal. He hated it.
He saw that on
if you actually read his letters, that it's not in his books. If you actually read his letters that he sent home, and they are available, you can research it. He abhorred the racism that he saw, especially in Central and South America, in the times that he was there during his time on the HMS Beagle.
Yeah,
so
I agree with you.
He was adamantly not racist.
Treat it too.
Yeah. So.
Right, I agree with you. Yeah.
So I'm just going to change the topic a little bit.
Okay.
We have people kind of discussing, like bringing up points about evolution and race and skin color, and especially with like hair coverings, saying like, here's a good example. So like, why are monkeys in Africa covered in hair? As a response to someone saying that the early humans were adapted to an African environment. That's why they expressed less hair over their bodies.
Have you seen some of the guys from the Mediterranean?
Yeah, so
They're still pretty damn hairy, man.
What I would explain to Peter Aussie Gold is that the reason why monkeys have hair but humans do not have hair is not because of like temperature or the sun. It's because of things like sweat glands and long distance running, and like there's other factors other than just simply what you're thinking about with temperature, because they were asking why don't people in Northern Europe, why aren't they covered in hair? So there are explanations for this, and also the people in Northern Europe also have clothes, so their evolutionary pressures are different than people that do not have clothes. Anyone else want to weigh in on that?
Yes, I get to go next. Okay, so Getsa Gibbon has an excellent video about this. So part of the reason that human beings thrived is because you have animals like primates who do not walk upright on two legs. So if you think about looking downward from a bird's eye view at an animal who has to walk on four legs, they're going to have more of their skin exposed to the hot sunlight versus a human being who's walking upright. They don't have as much surface area exposed to the sun. So as long as we have hair on the top of our heads protecting us from the sun, as well as sweat glands, which a lot of other animals don't have, that's what has allowed us to be able to walk or run for such long distances, like Grace was talking about. But I'm sure I kind of butchered what she was saying, but she has a great video about that.
No, that's an excellent point. Definitely agree with that. I think that adequately expresses the differences in hair that we see.
And the amount of hair per follicle is not that different between humans and some primates, actually, which sounds wrong, but
oh god,
look it up.
Oh my goodness.
I also
it's amazing. It's amazing too. When I was an atheist, the types of things I thought about, because I have a degree in psychology, and at the time I was an atheist, and the number of things that you can think of that we evolved to develop, and it gets quite sickening, guys. I mean, I remember. Well, think about it. I mean, you're talking about perpetuating your genes. So I remember my can't remember what was it. My final project, I used some evolutionary psychology, which is all just really just made up thought. But if you believe in evolution, it makes sense. And it was about what women find attractive and why, and during certain menstrual cycles that they have. So the idea was when they were most fertile, they liked the strong man and the man that has, more masculine characteristics, because you want those genes. And here's the science behind it. Here's the data. But when they're not menstruating, they want the nicer guy that smiles more, and just because he'll be better at taking care of the children. It's all made up stuff, man.
Well, actually, we can test
that's not real.
This. It's really interesting to test this, actually, because we can predict the levels. Well, this works both ways. If we know the level of sexual dimorphism, meaning how different are males and females of a given species, if they're very sexually dimorphic, meaning they're very different between males and females, we know what their parental behavior will be like. The males will be impregnating as many females as possible, and the females will be raising the children by themselves without male involvement. However, if the species has co-parental strategies where both the males and the females are involved in rearing young, then sexual dimorphism is at a minimum, and the differences between males and females of that species, there's hardly any differences at all. So these things predict each other, and it's such a reliable correlation that this is demonstrable in multiple species. We can look to any species, we can look at how sexually dimorphic they are, and we can know what parental strategies they have. This is demonstratable.
And you even see something called alloparenting, where in social species, they'll take care of children that aren't even their own genetic offspring.
Yeah, and then you guys are going to go to the part where oh, it's better that the woman has sex with the more masculine men, but the more feminine men, she's going to be the one that they're going to marry. And here's the evolutionary science
You're the
behind
one.
it.
You're the one.
Like what? It's literally the track you guys are going on. That's my point. Is once you keep going,
nobody was saying that.
Yeah, you're the
well,
one
I'm
who
just
brought
showing
up
you
all
that's
this
the
weird
direction that
incel
you're
stuff,
going.
not us.
It's not
That's
the
the direction you're
I'm going. I
going.
don't
You guys
believe
don't
that.
know.
It's the direction
It's
you're
not a
going.
slippery slope.
I'm saying it's a direction where your scientific community is going.
No, it's not.
Stop telling other people what they believe. It's getting old.
Speaking of, actually, I wanted to share this fact. So you know how it's always said Kent has been perpetuating this, but other people like Matt Powell and others have made videos about how evolutionists believe that life came from rocks. And everybody says nobody thinks that, blah, 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 blah. Well, Matt Powell actually made a video last week where he tries to refute this, and he tries to show papers from origin of life researchers and geologists that he claims show that they think that life came from rocks. So I actually emailed the geologist whom he was citing, a guy named Robert Hazen, and like literally all of the sources that he was citing to say that they really do believe that life evolved from rocks were all from this Hazen guy. So I emailed him a couple days ago, and he actually got back to me, and I showed him Matt Powell's video, and he said it was an extremely misleading transformation of his work, and that he does not agree that life evolved or came from rocks, and that nobody says that.
Can you say cherry picking?
Can I just wanted to say real quick that I feel like it's a contradiction when creationists say this, because they simultaneously say that, oh, well, they don't know abiogenesis. They don't know where the origin of life came from. They have all these different theories, but they don't actually know that. But they also say that we know that we came from rocks. So it's like, which is it?
I find it fascinating how you think just because Ken Hovind will admit that, I don't know, what's the right term? Is it speciation or natural selection? You know, with the dog paws possibly happening where they get more.
They can't interbreed anymore.
Okay, well, adaptation. Sorry, just because because he admits adaptation, you say he just admitted to evolution, and then you guys go off on this, and that's why he has to completely say, you know, dogs make dogs over and over again, because you want to jump to that conclusion constantly.
Well, he's confirming evolution,
and the fact that you don't want to admit that you do believe.
It's the law of monophyly. That's
Here we
part
go.
of
Here's
evolution.
my point. That's a big jump, and then you're going to claim that we make jumps.
But that's not what Grayson said, though. He said that because Kent admits speciation, and he admits that microevolution is true. Well, speciation is effectively shorthand for macroevolution. So if he agrees with both, that's the ball game.
And I'm going to say that you believe that life came from a rock.
Okay, well,
it's just the same thing.
That's funny,
and you don't like to believe it. That's why he has to say it.
But I don't know that that's not what we believe.
Find me a video of any YouTuber evolutionist saying in those exact words, "I believe we came from a rock." You can't.
Yeah.
The only thing
you don't want to admit what you believe.
The only thing that Matt Powell showed is that geologists and origin of life researchers acknowledge that rocks and minerals play a key role in the development of life. But that's completely different than saying that we evolved from rocks and minerals.
Yeah,
like,
it's just the
go ahead and tell me how.
Hold on. I'm just going to use a metaphor real quick, and then you can respond. Just because when I was born, that nurses and doctors played a key role in my birth, does that mean I came from the nurses and doctors that delivered me?
Grayson, go ahead and describe to me how life became about. How did abiogenesis occur?
We don't know.
We're still working on it. We're still working on it.
Go ahead and tell me what the theory is that you believe.
Personally, I like the amyloid world hypothesis, from which you have before DNA and RNA, you would have amyloids, which are collections of like proteins coming together.
Where did they come from?
Where did they come from? Amino acids are formed naturally, and we know the mechanisms by which they form.
From what then? What are amino acids? Okay, what's phosphate?
Phosphates.
Okay, wait. Amino acids have been demonstrated to form in space, like
we found them in asteroids.
Ice and dust. We actually have.
What is ice and dust made of?
Ice and dust.
Mm-hmm.
Ice is made of water.
And what's dust made of?
Can be made of any kind of
dust
like
is a very
stardust,
vague
an
term.
assortment of
any kind of
minerals,
what? So I can't
metals, minerals,
minerals
metals.
and metals. Okay.
For
Would you consider minerals and minerals to be
for
rocks?
this example, because you're asking,
you guys
about
believe that you
amino
came from
acids,
rocks.
The dust is made of polycyclic aromatic hydrocarbons.
We just established that you guys believe you came from rocks.
No, we didn't.
No.
I just
minerals,
told you polycyclic
metals,
aromatic hydrocarbons, which are
those
not
are
rocks. They are organic molecules.
Yeah.
If you want to say we came from water, I'd be happy to grant that. Water was there too.
If you just say we came from stardust, nobody will rebuke that.
No argument.
Because that sounds more mystical and special than saying.
No, it's just more accurate.
It's called stellar nucleosynthesis.
I think I don't mind it being more mystical. I think that's cool. I think
because you believe in a fairy tale.
No.
Okay,
so do you. So what's the difference?
Somebody said that Dr. James Tour disproved that amino acids make themselves, and I think that he's misunderstanding. So I'm actually caught up on James Tour's ongoing abiogenesis videos. I think that he's the best creationist because he's an actual scientist that has made any content about abiogenesis. Like, he's actually doing somewhat scientifically rigorous thinking. But what Jungle Jargon is misunderstanding is that James Tour was talking about polypeptides, not amino acids. James Tour does not dispute that amino acids make themselves. This is observable. We can literally look at space and see this happening. So, and we find it in meteorites too. We find meteorites full of amino acids from space, from natural processes. Nobody disputes that amino acids make themselves. What he's disputing is that they come together into polypeptides in water condensation reactions in the ocean, which again was disproved when you have hydrophobic pockets like in lipids.
Fats.
Okay, Grayson, what are meteorites made of? Are they made of, would they be considered rocks?
Meteorites are rocks to, yeah, sure.
There we go.
Meteorites are rocks. Now, when you say, wait, hold on. Because when I say that organic materials and amino acids exist on meteorites, I'm not saying they are meteorites. You understand that I exist in my house. That doesn't mean I am my house.
I thought you were a house.
You understand that whatever you think.
What about Dr. House?
Was formed by meteorites.
No.
Yeah, they're not formed by meteorites.
Okay, fine. Well, just, I'll concede it. My whole point is I don't care. My whole point is that you guys find it offensive and it's silly because it is what you guys believe.
Well, no,
it's stardust.
ridiculous.
Is that a rock?
You said evolution was sickening.
The reason why I don't like it when they say that the evolutionists believe we came from rocks is because it's not accurate. Like, I take objection to misinformation and like false facts. Okay, so like if what you guys were saying was like, oh, you believe that we came from space dust, I won't argue with that because it's accurate. It's
everything
not saying like we don't come from rocks. Nobody thinks that it's not accurate to claim.
Okay. Yeah, or even water, because at least we have water in our bodies. The earliest life forms didn't have mineral content in their bodies; they had water, I don't know if they had water in their bodies, but we do.
We're basically made up of minerals, water, and carbon. I mean, it's pretty basic.
Tacos.
And all of those things are found. Yes, they are found in rocks, but they're also found in other things. But it's not out of a rock.
You guys want me to say wet rock?
These minerals and these metals and all these other things can also be found not in a rock. That's the problem that we have, is they say it's a rock. No, it's not. Yeah, they're in rocks. Okay, sure. They're in rocks, but there's also tiny amounts in everything. Okay? There's all sorts of metals and minerals and everything floating around in the ocean, basically in the molecular form.
Yeah, the point is that we did not come from rocks. We came from organic molecules. And just real quick before we continue this discussion, I just got to do my. I'm a new YouTuber, so I got to do my spiel of just you guys. If you like this kind of debate and content, consider subscribing. Mean a lot as I'm trying to grow the channel. But that's all I'm going to plug.
Go hit that like and subscribe button. Do it.
Yeah,
Do it now.
Grayson.
Now.
You got to get an avatar, Grayson, and you should really have your name be the same name as your channel on here, so people will, just so they'll know it.
Yeah, that would minimize confusion for sure. I thought about trying to go get a little image of plankton just to fit in with the theme of my debate with Kent today, where I
You
used
can use the SpongeBob guy.
Yeah, I know Kent's a SpongeBob guy, so I was going to be plankton, and it was a whole thing.
Yeah, I saw the one where somebody pulled out a stuffed animal of Patrick during their debate. That was pretty good.
I haven't seen that.
Yeah.
I like Gary. Meow.
Hey, thanks Andrew for subscribing. It means a lot as I'm trying to grow this channel and do some more content like this. I was thinking about doing like a video that is specifically, like I want to do more than just creation and evolution. And there was a video I saw the other day that had like 300,000 views of some stooge that was claiming that carbon dioxide is actually good for the earth and that it doesn't cause warming and that global warming is not a real thing. And I just really wanted to go through and debunk his pseudoscientific claims. So I really just am interested in debunking any kind of pseudoscience, including, flat eartherism, like quantum mysticism, race realism, and any of these like stupid things that people believe and claim as science.
Well, Grayson, my email is on my channel. If you go to the About section, you send me an email. I'll give you some advice on how to grow your channel, and I'll make a post on my community tab and tell people to go subscribe to you.
Hey, thanks, man. I really appreciate that a lot. And you're right. I gotta put more effort into the thumbnails and the graphic design. But hey, I mean, this is only my second stream ever, so I'm still very much on the learning curve.
You're getting it. You're getting it. It takes a while.
Yeah.
Okay, so yeah, it just seems like the only kind of conversation that's going on more in the comments is maybe just about like some of the abiogenesis topics and people kind of misunderstanding thereof, like that, for example.
It's why Kent is always saying, "Oh, it didn't make itself. Animals don't make themselves." That's not what evolution says. I don't even understand the concept of how something can make itself.
Well, I think that I can kind of understand in a colloquial sense, like what he's referring to, but I would just like point to the fact that like I think what he's just basically talking about is like spontaneous formations of things, like without having to have somebody like directing the process. And to that, I can just point out to the fact that like lipids and amino acids are known to spontaneously form, like without any like, I mean, sure, like the molecules around them, like the water molecules are what's driving the formation of lipid bubbles, but like you could still understand, like colloquially, I understand what he's talking about, and we do like lipid bilayers do make themselves, amino acids do make themselves, like with naturalistic processes. Like again, like we've seen, and this is like an interesting statistic, that like literally 1/5 of all of the carbon in the universe that we observe is actually in these like clouds of ice and dust in space, and it's in like polycyclic aromatic hydrocarbons, which are like complex like molecules of like carbon arrangements. Like they are spontaneously forming like complex carbon organic molecules in space, like naturally.
Yeah, it's called chemistry. And I think that's one thing that a lot of the evolution deniers and abiogenesis deniers and people don't understand. It's simple chemistry in a lot of this. A lot of this is just, attraction of a negative to a positive of, electrons. It's just things just want to stick together. And eventually you're going to get two things that stick together, and then they stick together with something else. And then, well, voila, you have things like polypeptides, you have things like amino acids, you have, phosphorus-based lipids, things like that. And these are just basic chemistry. Was it your Geller experiment to where they actually created some of these things in a laboratory setting? It has been repeated several times. to where, you know, some of these things actually do. I mean, irradiation, dehydration, inundation, again and again and again. And
Miller-Urey.
over successive, what it was?
Miller-Urey experiment.
Miller-Urey, that's it. Yeah,
amino
not
acids,
Uri
I
Geller.
think.
What the hell am I thinking of? Oh, that's
I
that
was just-
hack from the 1980s.
Yeah.
The psychic guy. Yeah, sorry.
Yeah.
The Miller-Urey
thought-
experiment. Right. Thank you. I got the Urey part right, but still,
Yeah.
these things are basic chemistry. If you can't understand basic chemistry, then you really don't see how these things could come together on their own. They don't need some guiding outside force to do it. All they need is basic chemistry and physics, and they just
And
have
a lot of time.
I think
to do it.
last time, it's ridiculous, you guys. And I would mention this to Grayson. I got him finally to admit, you guys use words like basic and simple, but before we could look at a cell, we called it the simple cell. I got Grayson last time we talked to admit that the most simplest cell is more complicated than the Ford factory. Little tiny random particles sticking together on accident and then being able to replicate. This can't happen on accident. It's silly. It's not basic
it all
chemistry.
wouldn't
It's a
happen all at
very
once.
complicated organism.
Right.
That
It wouldn't
can't just
happen all at
happen by
once.
chance.
Is chemistry an
Yeah.
accident?
It doesn't. It
So
doesn't
well,
happen
here,
by
sure,
chance
it
all
can't
in
happen all at
situ.
once. This is imaginary. This is
That's
an
what you're
imaginary
saying.
thing.
But you're
Yeah.
saying the
that
same
you have in
thing.
your mind that little amino acids can turn into something as complex as.
And
Let me
creationists
just
do this
finish
so
for a
often.
second.
Like P-Town. Creationists do this so often, right? They say that they establish a false dichotomy where they
Yeah.
think that we are saying this all happened by accident, when we're just claiming
You don't like to believe that-
naturalistic guiding like principles. That's not an accident. Chemistry is not just an accident.
No.
Okay,
That was
fine.
my
The
point.
mechanisms in the cell, though, you need various. You guys make it sound like they developed each mechanism slowly, and
Yes,
you guys
they
have this
did.
assumption. That's ridiculous because they need each mechanism for the whole thing to
they
work.
Don't. No, they don't. No, they don't. You're trying
That's
to go down
ridiculous.
the route of irreducible complexity, and that doesn't work because
Disproved in court.
many of these early organisms could get by on
That you made
very
up.
simple chemical processes that eventually, over billions, not millions, billions of years, developed and changed to improve their survivability and their ability to use mitosis to reproduce, to break apart, and all of a sudden, boom, you got two of them. It's chemistry. A lot of this is chemistry. Some of it is physics involves too. But it's not something that just happened
And
out of nowhere.
imagination.
And yes, but we also have a lot of evidence. We have mountains.
What's wrong
of
with
evidence.
imagination?
You
But
show
do
me
you not-
one
No, no,
example of evidence.
Imagination is great.
Do you
I
never
mean,
use your
Example of evidence
imagination?
where you
look
experience
who's talking
any of
about
this
it.
happening.
Look who's talking about imagination. You're imagining an imaginary anthropomorphic magical monster in the sky that did everything suddenly
Magical
with
monster,
no-
and you
with-
guys get
with
upset that
no
I say that you
evidence.
believe you came from rocks.
with no evidence. You have
You said
nothing to back
You
it
said I
up.
believe in
except
a
for some
magical
books.
monster. No, that's not true. So you believe in abiogenesis, and a large part of that is because we found
No, I
little
don't
tiny
believe in it yet.
microscopic.
I don't believe
microscopic
in abiogenesis yet because
molecules.
I have yet to get enough evidence to prove how it was done. See,
But you do believe that we
formed
formed from
called
tiny
evidence
things
and
in
epistemology.
water. You do believe that we came from tiny things formed in water, either in pools or in some cosmic soup,
We might find
or in the deep oceans, because
We
we
don't
observed
know.
some of them in the deep oceans. But these are what you hypothetically believe that you don't know. But
Right,
little
we
things
don't
like the
know.
Bible describe
we're
these
at least
things first.
intellectually honest enough to say we don't know, whereas
How do
you
you
are
hypothetically
intellectually
believe something?
dishonest enough to say that I know, but I can't prove it. We're saying we can't prove it and we don't know.
Yeah, that's why there's like
That's
10
the
different
difference. That's
hypotheses.
intellectual honesty.
Yeah, I don't know how you can hypothetically believe something. There's multiple different hypotheses that either could be true individually or concurrently, and we don't know. But
It
that's
could
not
be
saying we
panspermia.
believe. Yeah.
Right. It could be panspermia.
you-
It could be deep hydrothermal vents.
Okay,
could be
here's what we
inundation
know, right?
pools.
But it starts as a
Emotions?
small little thing, though.
Hold on.
And what-
Here's what
what
we know.
does?
Okay?
No,
can
it might not
observe-
be water.
But
Wait,
it has to
hold
start
on,
from
hold on,
amino
hold on.
acids. It has
Hold
to-
on. Here's what we know. Okay, we can observe the cosmic microwave background, which definitively shows that at one point the universe was too hot and dense for even atoms to form. Therefore, there was no life. Now there is life. Those two things are facts. And so we
Yep.
know at some point that life had to arise from non-life. So we can prove that much happened. The mechanism by which it happened is still unknown.
We don't know.
So
And
you're
that's
taking
honest.
God out of the equation, and yet you're saying
Well,
that
no,
you
there's-
guys
no, no,
can't
no, no,
eliminate.
no,
You said
no,
the
no.
mechanism is
It was
No,
never in the
no.
equation in the first place. Your belief is not the default position.
Right.
You just think it is.
Right,
If-
but
if
you
enough
think that your
evidence came
default
around-
position is taking God out of the equation.
No, it's
That doesn't
not.
even make any sense.
Because there is still
P-Town,
Not
I
to your
also
brain.
never took God out of the equation. Like
No,
what I
there is
said
no
does
removing
not
it.
preclude God.
You're
All I
taking
said
Vishnu
is
out
that
of the
we
equation,
know that
P-Town.
life came from non-life at a certain point in the past. I didn't say. I said the mechanism is unknown. That does not preclude God as a mechanism.
It does
You're
not
taking Zeus
exclude.
out of the
It does
equation,
not
Grayson.
exclude God as a mechanism. It does not
taking Achilles
exclude it
out.
at all.
You're taking Vishnu out of the equation. Why are you doing
Brahma.
Okay, I misunderstood you for a second.
Brahma.
The way that you described it, Grayson, it sounded like you're taking God out of the equation.
No, I
Well,
was
that's
just
an
describing.
assumption.
But
like,
think about it though.
why
You
we
believe in the
know.
Big Bang, and
that? I was
a lot of
literally
the
saying the
aspects
opposite.
You know
There's
what's
a lot of
interesting
aspects
is
of the
actually
Big Bang
during
that
the
were
Cultural
foretold in the
Revolution
Bible.
in the 60s in China, they actually banned the Big Bang from being talked about and being taught because the Chinese government under Mao said that the Big Bang theory is too reactionary and leaves open the existence of God and could lead people into believing in God, so they banned it from being taught.
Yeah, because you know what it did? It established or pointed to that there was a beginning. Before the Big Bang, the
Not
majority of
necessarily.
scientists, I get it, because that was scary, but it's scary for most of scientists to see that modern, like 19th century science is basically pointing to, oh, there was a beginning at some point, just because by looking at how things are expanding and expanding at an accelerated rate,
Well, that's
by
just for-
which, by the way, the Bible describes.
But that's just for
Well,
But
our
you're never
own
going to give the
observable-
Bible credit with that.
But that's just for our own observable universe. There are other universal theories out there that have a cyclical universe to where
Right,
everything
exactly.
collapses back.
It's
in
all
upon itself.
imaginary.
There's
It's
Big
all
Bang
made
theory.
up.
Yeah,
Big
but
Bang was
all of
discovered
this
in
is
the
backed up by
20th century.
physics. And,
It's all made up, but you'll never
yeah.
go and see that the Bible described what we actually observe first.
Where did
You'll
the
never
Bible
admit
say
that.
a Big Bang occurred?
Yeah.
It mentions throughout that God stretches out the heavens.
That's
Also
not the same
foretold
thing
that
as a
the
complete
stars would be
description of- that's an
innumerable.
expansion of space-time.
It was before science did.
So,
No.
so you're telling me that the mathematics of general relativity that explains how space-time expands is equivalent to the words you read in the Bible? Those words that you just said?
What about
Is that what you're
all
telling
the
me?
other religions?
I'll
too?
tell you what the Bible says. I won't go as far as you grouping it into that, but
What
I
good
mean,
is that verse if it took
No,
them
that-
so
Just
that's
long?
imagine-
Are you telling
imagine
me?
this, guys. It talks about how
I don't want to use my imagination. I thought using my imagination was bad, so we should avoid that.
Well, how about use your brain? Sorry. Use your brain
use
for
my-
a second
well, I
and
use my
imagine
brain
this.
to imagine
Let's go
things.
back. Sure. So go ahead and find it, AJ, and listen to what I have to say for a second. A long time ago, there were a bunch of scientists that would argue and count the stars in the sky. And they would say, oh, there's 1,532, there's 1,567. And they would argue together, write their fancy papers. But it was the Bible all along that said the stars were innumerable. When we invented the telescope, we were like, wow, it looks like they are innumerable. And then when we got a telescope into outer space, we're like, wow, they really are. We really
Except
can't
that
count
they're
them.
not innumerable. Like
Do you
there
think- do you
are
think
a
they're an
finite
infinite-
number of them.
Yeah. You think there's an infinite amount of stars, or just
They can't be counted. They
That
can't be
doesn't make them
counted.
infinite. That
That's
doesn't make it
innumerable.
infinite.
I said innumerable. So
But it doesn't literally make it infinite, though. Just
I
because
said
we can't
innumerable.
count it.
Yeah,
Okay,
but they
okay,
are
good.
numerable. There is,
So you're-
objectively speaking,
my point-
a number that
you guys-
describes the total amount of
You
stars.
guys have
cares
this
if we can't
anti-God.
count them? Who
You have this
cares?
anti-God. The point is that science was counting them and believed they were
Well-
1,500 and some change.
There's
The
a
point
lot
is
of
the
stars.
Bible
What
predicts
what an
the future,
amazing
just like it
observation
has
by the
done
Bible.
throughout
by the
time
observers.
Hold on.
before
Why-
science.
Why
Just one
do you,
example.
Why do you automatically
go-
go to anti-God? Why do you automatically go to that?
I'm trying to describe to you how the Bible predicted the future in
That's
only
fine.
one of thousands
We
of ways.
predicted that there's
And you
lots
guys
of
are telling-
stars.
But
Who
you
cares?
automatically
Duh, it's
go
that
to this
simple.
What an
anti-God
amazing
thing.
prediction. That's not a prediction that there's lots of stars.
It is. It is actually. It
No,
did.
there's
yeah.
not. Literally,
Yeah,
that's just
great
looking up in the
prediction.
sky
Look
and
up.
seeing that there's lots of stars.
Go outside at night and
That's
look
not a
up.
prediction.
No, it's hard for you to understand. It is a
What did it
prediction
predict?
when God
What
says
did
it
predict?
first.
But
It
God
says
didn't
that the
say it
stars
first.
are
God didn't
innumerable,
write
like
the
the sand
Bible.
in the sea.
You're
God
saying,
didn't write the Bible, though.
you're saying that in the Bible it says that God stretched out the heavens, and
There's
that
that
is a
too.
prediction of the expansion of space-time. So my question is that
You
why
keep
were
on adding
exactly
space time
no
and all these
Christians
fancy
predicting the
words.
expansion of space-time before the scientists discovered it? Why didn't anybody in all of history read that verse and think, oh, that must mean that space and time is expanding?
Right.
You keep adding space time. The fact that the stars are moving away and at an accelerated
don't
rate is
understand
what the
basic
Bible
relativity.
describes it.
Well,
So you don't understand basic
You're
relativity.
you're jumping into other things.
Or
The
special
point is
relativity.
that the stars are moving away and at an accelerated rate. That's a very scientific statement.
The
That's
point
described in the Bible.
Here's P-Town. This is why it is expanding space-time and not just the stars moving away. There's two reasons. Okay, one.
I understand what you believe, Grayson.
I don't think that you know what I'm about to say.
Don't.
I'm about to
don't
explain
understand.
two things. Okay, one is Hubble's law, and that is that the stars that are more distant are actually are moving away faster. Okay, now that is not explained by just simply the stretching of the heavens. That's only explained if the rate at which these things are moving away is dependent on the amount of distance between us and them. So if there's more distance between us, they're moving faster, and they're moving so much faster that if these things were actually moving and it's not just the expansion of space, then they would have to be moving at faster than the speed of light, which is physically impossible.
I have an idea of what you're talking about and why you're talking about it. When I'm going to tell you what the Bible says, it's simple. God stretched out the heavens, stretched them out like a curtain, like a tent to dwell in. It's in essence, it's like stretching out fabric. We even use the term the fabric of space time or whatever. The same words, guys. The same descriptions when we describe it where it's inflating like a balloon. The inflation theory. These are the same words in a sense that the Bible uses. I'm just saying it's not. It doesn't say space time in the Bible, but it's just go address my objection about the whole counting the stars thing. There's papers written back and forth between scientists where they argue about how there's 1,500 and some change, and then it turns out once we invented the telescope,
so you're
observable. But the point is, it's just simple. It's a simple prediction.
All you're saying is that science refines its knowledge and gets better over time. But what you're failing to understand...
I'm saying that science refines what the Bible says.
Hold on. What you're failing to understand...
You don't ever... Right? Why can't you just admit it?
Hold on, man. What you're failing to understand is that the stars are not innumerable. They are numerable. There is a number of stars. There's a finite number of stars that exists.
It's more than 1,500. That's all I'm saying.
Okay, well, then we would agree that it's more than 1,500. Congratulations.
That number is your claim that it's just a number that you...
I guess you guys don't want to understand my point. It's like this aversion to wanting you to even considering that possibly
is about as specific and accurate as tomorrow something will happen. It's that vague.
It's vague.
Your point is very stupid.
Just having a prediction and it turned out to be true, that doesn't count for much.
It's like saying dogs produce
you're not going
dogs
to count at all, but it should count for something. That science from the past
other cosmological phenomena does the Bible specifically predict?
I have something to say about the expanded
Here's
universe.
A simple one. God made the sun and the moon.
Hold on.
How about that?
Jungle Jargon just joined. He says he wants to say something about the expanding universe. Go ahead and make your point, Jungle.
It's a little bit... it might take some time, but it's not. The universe is not expanding. The redshift is from the expansion of distance between the galaxies that causes the redshift. It's not.
So how do you explain Hubble's law, where the more distant objects are expanding at a faster rate away from us?
Because it's that much farther and that much more distance between the galaxies that's expanded.
Well, why is the rate of expansion increasing?
No, it's not the rate.
It is.
It's just that
Hubble's law says it is.
it's twice.
It is.
It's twice Yeah, it's twice as far, twice
It's-
as fast because the expansion is twice as much.
When we
Between-
say
That's
space is
accelerating. Yeah,
expanding, we
it's-
mean
it's-
No,
Let's try not to overtalk.
it's the distance between galaxies that's expanded. It's not expanding. If
But
you can
why?
because
Why
of general
does the
relativity.
rate of the movement of the rate that these things are moving away from us directly
But
relates to
that's
the
what I'm
amount
saying.
of distance between us?
But
That
that's
is
what I'm
exactly what
saying.
we would expect if it was the
That's-
actual expansion of space that was causing these things to recede. This
But
is
that's-
not
but
explainable
that's what
by
I'm
just saying that
saying.
these things are receding. Like
You're
you're just saying that
assuming.
it's correlated with their distance because it is. You're not offering an
You're
explanation.
assuming that it's moving away twice as fast. It's not moving. I mean, it's moving here and there, but it's not moving. The universe is not expanding. It's the distance is expanded the farther away you get from a gravitational well.
If I may, Grayson, I'd like to provide
But
one.
that's all. I just wanted to see what you guys thought. And that's it. That's
Okay,
about
I
it.
want to let a rational empiricist make his point.
Or I don't know if you were going to say this next after the previous point you made, but there's another separate prediction beyond Hubble's law and redshift that is predicted by specifically an expanding universe that we have observed. And one reason why we know that space-time itself is expanding. And this is due to the time delay observed in supernovae light curves. So according to the mathematics behind space expanding, if that's occurring, then farther out, so greater redshift, the far away an event occurs, the longer it appear to take to us here on Earth. It's basically the same thing with the wavelength being stretched leads to redshift. In this case, frequency of the light, which is related to the time, is also stretched. So the event appears to take longer. And that's what we see in supernovae. So we know that, in fact, what's going on is space is expanding. It's not just things are moving apart, things are the distance is increasing for some arbitrary reason. No, space is expanding in the way described by our physical understanding of the universe.
I would say it's expanded, not expanding.
What?
It's
It's
So
expanded.
you don't think that
Space-
the universe is currently still expanding?
Space, no, it's not. It's not expanding. Take my word
So
for
it's
it.
static.
The
I'll take the
space
cosmologist's
is
word for it
expanded
instead.
between the galaxies. They're not moving.
I'll take Neil deGrasse Tyson's word for it instead.
Yeah, here's a
go
related
ahead,
question
go ahead.
from the chat. Somebody's asking if the universe is 13.7 billion years, how is it 93 billion light years across? This is exactly what we've been describing.
This is what Grayson was trying to get to.
Yeah, it's because of the
Which is
expansion
really
of
gonna go off
space. These things
topic
are
and be-
physically not moving apart.
Right.
Also,
It's expanding like a tent to dwell in, and like a
And-
curtain,
One thing,
And another
one thing that
point-
like fabric.
you did get wrong
that
is that
stretches.
things within our observable universe, things within it cannot exceed the speed of light. However, the expansion of the
mass.
universe itself can.
Right.
It
Because
doesn't.
it's
it is
it's
not
all
constrained.
relative in theory.
It's all relativity. Yay, special.
Another
Right.
point is that time goes by faster in the expanded space. So light travels faster through expanded space.
It cannot
because
travel.
time-
It cannot
By-
travel
by
faster in
no,
No.
because
space.
time runs faster.
It can only
because
travel
It is-
slower.
It can
because
only
time
travel
is
slower
running-
because of being impeded by media.
You're not listening. Time goes by at a faster rate. Time runs faster between the galaxies. Time goes by.
What's the
faster
mechanism for
between the
that?
galaxies.
How does it do that?
General relativity.
So you're saying that the actual
So
light
you don't
is
understand
traveling
general
at a
relativity.
faster speed
No, you don't.
through
you don't know what I'm
expanded
saying.
space.
He was saying light, and then he switched to talking
Time
about time.
goes by at a faster rate where there's no matter.
How would that affect the light, though?
Yeah.
Because it's time is going by at a faster rate.
You realize that the speed of light is a result of two measurable quantities.
Which
That is
vary.
the vacuum permeability and the
And
vacuum
both-
permittivity. And if you measure both of those properties of a vacuum, then you would calculate the speed of light. And that's
No,
like
but-
you can use
no,
fundamental
it's two
physics to
variables.
arrive at the speed of light.
186,383
The two variables are
miles per second.
time. The two variables are time and distance,
Impressive.
both which vary, both which have variations.
Okay,
Yes,
I
but
just
not
wanted to comment on
significant.
the.
I just
the
want to
stretching
say
out
that
the
God
heavens
did
thing.
it.
Yeah, we know. But about the stretching out the heavens thing, that's describing an Earth that's a flat Earth with a dome over it called the
Firmament.
Come on,
and
AJ.
God
You
sewing
just
the
said you
stars
didn't like. You
like
thought
they're
I was
pinpricks of
strawmanning
light.
you.
I'm not finished. This God sewing the stars that are pinpricks of light, by the way, that are small enough to fall down on Earth and a human being to stomp on, sewing them into the blanket that he stretches over this dome, and that's what happens when it's nighttime.
Sounds like Mithra.
That's not what the Bible says at all.
Yeah,
I
That's
want
not
to
what the
be
Bible
very
says.
clear on this point because some people in the chat are still not getting it. No, the matter is not moving faster than light. Okay, if space-time is expanding between two planets, they are moving further. They're getting farther apart from each other, but they're not
Right.
physically moving within space.
But you know what's
It's like if you
nonsensical
were to shine
about
a
that?
light beam between them, the light couldn't catch up.
You know what's
They're
nonsensical about
moving at
that?
that rate.
It means that the universe is infinitely expanding, which is you don't have any mechanism for it to begin with, and it's
What do you mean
it's
we
just
don't have a
nonsense. It
mechanism?
makes no
Can
sense.
anybody explain to me
An
what this
infinitely
comment
expanding
means?
universe.
The
makes no
comment I
sense.
have on
So
screen.
let me.
Anybody
Hey,
explain to me
Yeah,
what they're
Grayson,
talking
can I
no.
explain to you what the oxymoron about how the so I understand the science behind how the I mean if you have a beam of light that's going to go from one end of the universe to the other, it would be like possibly like this guy said 93 billion years old. But by calculating it with the expansion at the speed of light between each galaxy, we calculate to be 13.9 billion years old, right? But if you put yourself on one end of the total universe and then to the other, it in essence the speed of like if you measure it technically, the speed things must move faster than the speed of light relative to if you were able to stand at one end from the other. But at the same time, it's not moving faster than the speed of light. But if you were able to be there and actually witness it, it is moving technically in front of faster than the speed of light. It gets kind of silly and complicated.
The universe itself can exceed the speed of light.
Correct.
Things
It doesn't have
constrained
mass.
within
If
the
you-
universe
If
can.
you
Well,
have,
Right,
if
yes,
you
we
add
can
a
see it
position
from
of
a
But it's
relativity,
cosmological
nonsense. It
perspective.
makes no sense. That's nonsense.
but you have the whole point. You know, I
Science
think
doesn't have to
ultimately.
make common sense.
Because there's no inflaton. Nobody discovered an inflaton. It's nonsense.
Right.
It's a fudge factor.
The whole thing is kind of nonsense, but it is what we observe. And if we
Well,
have an
Technology doesn't
unnatural,
disprove
and
science.
if we have a natural explanation for it, then you
well,
have
that's
the
what
Big
I'm
Bang
saying.
around.
We observe that space is expanded where there's no matter.
Expanding, not
It's expanding
expanding.
No.
everywhere.
No,
I'd like
not
to just bring up
expanding.
the fact
There's no.
that it
There's
looks
nothing
like
to make
at least
something
somebody
be
named Kent
expanded.
Hovind official is trying to join the stream.
Well,
but
come on,
has
Kent.
not been able to connect their devices.
I will jump
Well,
out to free a spot.
You're maxed. Out with
StreamYard
6
does up
people.
to 10. Yeah, StreamYard will do up to 10. So I
If
don't think.
if you have a subscription, only if you have a subscription.
Yeah,
don't
I
think
can
Grayson
only
Oh,
do
does
a
you don't
it.
have a
maximum of 6.
subscription?
But like I said, whoever was Kent Hovind official has not. They didn't connect their microphone up, so I was just saying device not connected. But it said Kent Hovind official was trying to join, but
Kent, if that would be cool. If Kent, you have to have a mic to join StreamYard, just so you know.
I
Is that the
don't
actual
believe it.
thing, Hovind?
I don't believe it. I think he went to bed.
yeah, it could have been just somebody else like saying that it was Kent Hovind official. But
I would bet more money on that.
But
yeah,
but
so
you have to
Shurian,
realize
we've addressed this. I don't know why you keep spamming it in the chat. I mean, the explanation is that space-time itself can expand faster than the speed of light. That is, space-time is not matter or energy.
There are
It
videos
is not
explaining this.
constrained to the same
That's-
physics that the universe itself is, that the matter in the universe itself is, I should say.
well,
Yeah,
it's the
exactly. So
thought
it's not
experiment,
bound
but-
by the speed of light.
No.
So that
It's
answers
not
that.
bound to speed of light, but you have to have a position of to have that relativity for there to be a
But you
contradiction.
guys realize that time runs at different rates in the universe. Time is not the
Correct.
same speed
Yeah,
everywhere
that's
in the
just
universe.
special relativity.
Let me-
Special
No,
let me-
relativity,
no,
yeah.
it's general
Let me bring this back to the
No,
China.
it's special
The reason
relativity.
General
back and-
relativity is the same thing.
No, it is not.
Special
not the
Where
relativity
the
same
hell
thing,
did
but
you
it
get
has the
1905,
that?
general relativity in 1935, they're different.
Where
It,
did?
of course,
yeah, you
of
need
course,
to go
they're
back to
different
physics
because
class.
general
need to go back
relativity
to physics
doesn't
class or
involve speed. General relativity doesn't involve speed, but the effect is the same.
Can I bring this back to the China thing? Because this is where it started. The reason why Mao or whoever wanted to take it out so it can't be taught is because it does lead to the conclusion that there's a God in two ways. One, that if you extract it and you extrapolate it back in time, it has a point at which the universe possibly started. But two, also in a sense, it establishes that time is in a way a physical property, and that we're actually in something that was created, and that's
Right.
the logic. Therefore,
Right.
so
It's a physical
19th
thing.
century, right? 19th
I think
century
that there's a
science.
difference between the Big Bang, like allowing for a possibility of God versus the Big Bang necessitating that
Right.
that God had to have existed. I don't think it necessitates it, but I think that it allows the possibility.
Right. So, well, my point, Grayson, is that it's hard for you to see now because you're growing up in a time where Big Bang, evolution, science without God is kind of in one corner. But before the Big Bang, before we were able to take those measurements of the stars, the main thing that atheists believed in was that everything continues the same as it is now, which would be uniformitarianism that is in geology, but also the idea is that the universe has always existed. So it was groundbreaking to realize that modern science points to there actually being a beginning, a foundational argument that has been contested throughout history by this, just like guys like you and me have different opinions. People have had different opinions throughout time, and the science behind the Big Bang was groundbreaking and in opposition to your side at that time. Now it's been twisted and changed, but that's
Yeah.
the history behind it, as far as
But
I can tell.
if you think about it, energy never could order itself, and energy is going from order to disorder. So just right there, you need a creator.
There's that too.
No.
Yeah.
No,
Yeah.
I don't understand what you just said, John.
yeah, I have
You
no
don't
idea.
understand it, but you gotta think about it. You gotta think about it.
Okay,
Okay,
it's so simple to see,
Jungle
Grayson.
Jargon. Hold on. I acknowledge the second law of thermodynamics. I don't acknowledge that necessitates a creator.
Well,
Because
Grayson,
how did it get ordered? How did energy order itself then?
we've talked about this. A huge example is just God made the sun and the moon. You believe in that all this stuff exploded or expanded, rapid expansion, billions of years. But from our perspective here on Earth, the moon and the sun are the same size, and we're able to witness eclipses. God made that for you to be able to see, Grayson. There's no science that's going to be able to open up your heart so you can see that God clearly made this world, made it this way so you can see it, so you don't have an excuse and know that there's a creator. It's so obvious, but it's not science. It's not as far as you would define science.
Right,
It's
but
just common sense, Grayson.
I'm showing science that proves God, because
It does
energy
prove.
can't make itself.
No, you're
Energy
making a
can't-
hypothesis.
Energy can't order. No, it's an observation. It's an observation. Energy can't order itself. It can't make itself. Try charging your phone from an equal or lesser amount of charge.
Okay, Jungle Jargon, I've already agreed that the second law of thermodynamics is a true law. Okay, I'm not saying that the entire universe goes from a state of high entropy to a state of low entropy. That's not what happens. And also, just P-Town, I don't know why you're saying like solar eclipses are your proof of God.
What'd you say? It does go from order to disorder, and it can't order itself.
No,
It
I'm
can't
saying
make
it
itself
doesn't go
either.
from disorder to order. Like
But
I'm not
you're
saying
not
that.
letting me finish my thought. Is that if you try to charge your phone with an equal or lesser amount of charge, you're not going to charge your phone. So
I've
that
agreed
means
3 times
you're
now to the
not
second
letting
law of
me
thermodynamics.
you're not letting me finish what I'm saying. So if there's any amount of energy at all, it had to have come from a greater amount of energy, and an infinite regress of greater and greater
I
physical
think you're misunderstanding
causes
energy
is
works.
nonsensical. You're never going to get. You'll just get heat. Everything's going to be too hot for anything to work.
That
so the
doesn't make any sense.
lowest entropy
You're not
state of the
following.
universe was right at like closest to time equals 0. That's the lowest state, and ever since then, it's gone to a state of more disorder.
Right.
Well, what's the cause of it ordering itself or getting ordered?
There
Well,
doesn't
it
need to be a
started
cause.
at its most ordered state. It has only gone
No.
to more disorder since then.
No, it can't be the most ordered. That's what I'm saying. It can't be the most ordered. The most ordered
Why
state would
can't
burn
it?
because it would be too hot for anything to exist.
That's not what low entropy means.
Yeah,
Yeah.
if in an incredibly hot and dense state in a universe, like very close to a singularity, the amount of entropy that you would have, which would be measured in the amount
Very
of
small.
micro states that the system can occupy, would be at the lowest in the universe's history.
Assuming a Big Bang model.
Just
I
assuming
thought
a
we-
hotter, denser state, which you don't even have to assume. You can look at the cosmic microwave background to see that that was the case.
No,
I thought we already agreed that was a fact here. I guess.
redshift. But it's your interpretation of the redshift that's
Are you
not
saying
right.
that the Big Bang isn't a fact? Isn't
Yeah,
isn't
the
valid?
Big Bang is not a fact, right? It's nonsensical too. For to have all the energy of the
Okay.
universe in
It's
in a
I would say that it's not a fact. It's a theory, and I
Right,
would say
yeah.
a scientific theory, not a hypothesis. There is a huge difference. We have
Right.
tons of evidence leading us to believe of a singularity or some beginning point that rapidly expanded, creating our universe.
Yeah.
Okay,
Assuming
but
that-
More
only to
phrasing
a
on my
certain
part.
point. Hold on,
My bad.
only to a certain point, because once we go back to a certain amount of time, our basic laws of physics, okay, relativity and special relativity break down. They don't work anymore. It's called the Planck length. Okay, so we have a good scientific theory, and it's pointing us in a certain direction. It is not a fact.
Yeah,
Right.
it's assuming an expansion of the universe
But we,
that's infinitely
yes, and we
expanded.
So-
see that universe, and
I
there's
want to
a
address this
huge
point.
amount of data.
Centurion
There's
is
a huge amount of
asking
data in
essentially what we
physics to
just
back up that
explained in the
hypothesis
comments. So
or that theory.
Centurion, what we just said, right, is that it's the Big Bang is not a chaotic, like the chaos, like the entropy measurement of the Big Bang was like lower than it is now in the universe. So the Big Bang did not bring order out of chaos. Okay, the Big Bang was a higher state of order than the universe is now. So chaos, as you're colloquially referring to entropy, has only increased since the Big Bang.
But you
Right.
still don't have a cause for the order of the singularity.
Right. Yeah. That is a
No,
good question to ask.
Right. We don't. We're still working on it. We're still thinking about it.
Well,
That doesn't
wait,
mean that
I would
God
actually rebut that as just saying the cause of the order is the fact that it is such a more hot and dense state. Like if you have things that are in that a hot dense state with that little amount of space between them, then your entropy is going to be lower because there are less micro
Right.
states for that system to occupy. That's the definition of entropy.
And that's exactly what energy can't do to itself.
What do you mean it can't do to itself?
It can't order itself.
Yeah, it's not ordering itself. Like I said, it's literally going to a state of more disorder over time. You're never reversing the second law of thermodynamics at any point.
Right. So how did the singularity get ordered?
We
As
don't
a result
know.
of its size and temperature and density.
Right.
It didn't.
My
It
point
didn't
was
order
we
itself.
don't
You
know.
agreed. You agreed it
don't
didn't
know.
order itself.
There's lots of hypothesis about the actual singularity itself. We don't know. That's the intellectually honest answer.
But
We do
I
not
do
know beyond a certain point.
I
Back
do
in
know.
time, we don't know.
I do know that any amount of energy has to come from a greater amount of energy. I know that. So it comes from a
What does that
greater
even
power.
mean?
It's a great. It's a greater power that made the
Energy
universe
doesn't
than what the
come
universe
from
is.
energy. That doesn't even make sense.
I think that he's pointing to like the conservation of energy and just saying that, like,
Right.
for you to have any kind of energy, you've got to come from, like, you're going to lose some of
Yeah,
it.
that's
and
the
it
only
needs
way
to-
I can interpret that. Like,
Right. You have to
understand
have
that.
a
So
greater.
basically, Jungle
much sense,
Jargon, what you're just pointing to is that nobody knows where the initial starting energy of the universe, quote unquote,
No.
came from.
I do know it's from a greater power. It has to be, because it can't
How
order
do you know
itself.
that?
Well, I'll just say that, like, again, agreeing with Colorado Biker, we don't know because the mathematics of general relativity and quantum mechanics break down, and
Yeah,
we don't have the proper mathematics at this point to describe that.
We don't
That's
have
why
the
we
physics,
get
yeah.
singularities.
Yeah, we don't have the physics. And just to make it perfectly clear, that does not eliminate any kind of supernatural force. All that it
Right.
says is that we know to a certain point, the Planck length, okay, that things were a certain way. We do not know before that. Because
just need to bring
we
up
have
this
not
point
developed
because
the physics or the
Centurion
math
is still
to
not
confirm
understanding
it yet.
what we're saying. A rapid expansion of the universe brought more disorder into the universe than existed before then. Okay, entropy increased as the universe expanded. It's not the opposite. Stop claiming that a rapid expansion brought about more order and lowered entropy. That is not the case.
Right. I have a basic question for Jungle. What is the first law of thermodynamics?
It said. Somebody got an echo. Well,
What's the
energy
first law
can't
of
make
thermodynamics?
itself.
No,
Energy can't make itself, and energy can't order itself.
no, that's
No.
incorrect. Energy cannot
No,
be
that's
created
correct.
or destroyed.
Yeah, energy can't make itself, and energy can't order itself. Yeah,
No, it cannot be
that's
destroyed.
what I said.
No, it is not
But
what you
that's what
said.
I said.
No,
Energy
it's not what
cannot be
you said.
created
What you
or
said is not
It is.
equivalent
destroyed.
to the first law.
You've got the first
combining
law
the first
wrong.
and second law.
Yeah, but you're talking physically, it can't make itself. Right, that's what I said. It can't make itself.
It cannot be created or destroyed. That's my
Yeah,
point. Okay,
but
so you don't
physically,
even
it cannot
understand
be
the first law of
physically-
thermodynamics.
It cannot be physically created. Right.
And it cannot be destroyed. Do
But
you
the-
understand
but it
the
was-
second part of it?
But it was
the sum-
created, though. It was
the
created,
sum
though.
total
No,
That's
it
what the
cannot
problem
be
is.
created or destroyed.
Physically.
That is the first law. You don't even
Physically.
understand the first law of
It
thermodynamics.
can't be physically created or destroyed. But it was created. You don't get it.
Well, then how did that happen? Because
By a
if you can
greater
explain
power.
that, then if you can explain
Yeah,
that
his
By
explanation is just
a
God.
with
greater
naturalistic
power.
means, then you'll win the Nobel Prize.
But his
No, it's
explanation
not
is just
naturalistic.
God.
It's supernatural. It's a
Okay, then
supernatural
what's the source
means.
of the supernatural?
It's by a greater power. It has to be an infinite power
Why does it have to be?
because it can't be almost infinite.
Well,
It has
it
to be
could just
infinite.
be.
I-
You just
has
said
to be
it could just
perfect.
be more
has to be
energy than the
complete.
energy of the universe. It doesn't have to be infinite.
It has to be
The entire
complete.
energy state of the entire universe is zero. How are
That's
you
the
getting?
universe. The universe is a creation.
Okay,
I feel like we might need to move on.
I'm about to
a
give up.
other
I'm
topic.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a created. Physics is
We're
created.
kind of just going in circles here.
The creation
yeah.
of
That's why I'm
matter.
like I'm done. It's
The creation of matter is what dilates time and distance. That's what I'm trying to explain to you about the dilation of time and distance.
No,
There's
the creation
no
of
single
space
measure
and
of
time
distance.
as it expands, like
energy.
is
You're talking over me. There's no single measure of distance, and there's no single rate of time in the universe.
So prove
I
that.
think you're
How do you prove
No,
that?
it's general relativity.
yeah.
No.
I agree. I agree
That's
with
an
you, Jungle
observation.
Jordan,
It's
that
observed.
General, okay.
relativity shows that there's no
Gravitational waves are
universal
observed.
like time or space. It's all
Dilation of time is
relative.
observed.
Okay,
Right.
simple question again for Jungle. What is the difference between general relativity and special relativity?
I already told you, special
What?
relativity involves speed. General relativity doesn't involve speed.
No, you've got that
No.
entirely wrong. You
Yeah,
are
general
complete-
relativity is
Oh
about
my
fixed
God.
matter.
No,
It's
What?
no.
about the
It's
amount of
one
matter and
is
mass.
one is in the
No.
one explains and describes how matter reacts with gravity. Special relativity describes all the processes in absence of gravity. One with, one without. General
Yeah,
with
one with
gravity,
speed, one with
general
speed, and
with
one
real
without
with
speed.
no gravity. Gravity. Oh God, I wish
Gravity
I had that
is
clip of Desert
because
File.
gravity
Gravity.
is from the formation of matter. You
No,
don't have
it's
gravity unless you have matter.
Gravity's from mass and energy.
Right,
mass. Yeah,
mass from matter. Matter with mass.
right.
That's
But it's still gravity.
but that's
Well,
what
there's so many
causes
physical
general relativity. That's what
things
causes the
we could
time
talk about here that we
General
dilation.
need to know
relativity
Is
about.
the
has
amount of
gravity.
mass
Special relativity
causes
has no gravity.
right
That's the
because it's
difference.
talking about speed.
Yeah,
No,
Talking
Jungle
about
it's
Dragon,
not
I
speed
really
about
don't
flowing in the speed of
understand
light.
why you can't just agree with this point. I mean, it's very clear that general relativity is including gravity and special relativity is not. I mean, both of them deal with speed. Both general and special
Yeah.
relativity, you can calculate how the
Well,
speeds would be affected by different
no,
curvatures of
wait a
space-time.
minute. Wait a minute. Special relativity has to do with things with mass. Things with mass are
No,
affected by special relativity.
no. How
Just
did you
Yeah.
get things with mass in something with no gravity?
Things because if something with mass is moving like a satellite, that's special relativity.
No, because there's
Uh,
still mass
If it's
involved.
moving at a constant
Uh,
speed, if it's not accelerating or being pulled by another object.
By gravity.
It's accelerating from gravity, but it's still accelerating.
No, there is no gravity in special relativity. This is
No,
what I'm
but
trying to
if
get
there's
across to you.
movement, there's special relativity. That's
Hey,
why.
Einsteins, I think I'm
That's
gonna
why
go hang out with my
satellites.
baby.
That's
Yeah,
why
I think that we're kind
satellites.
of getting to this point in the conversation where we're no longer being productive, but I do want to just say thank you all guys for being here. I think I'm going to call the stream at this point. We've been going over for 2 hours now, so I think
Thanks,
it was
Grayson.
pretty good. We touched on a lot of really interesting conversations, and I appreciated having all you guys here. So I hope that you guys will subscribe and be open to joining these in the future, because I plan on continuing to have these after shows after some of these Kent Hovind debates. And yeah, I mean, like, continue growing as a channel and creating more content around these ideas and debates.
We could talk about genetics
Thanks,
too,
Grayson.
about the Y haplogroups and the
Have a good night,
chromosomes.
everybody.
We
and the
will
breaking-
definitely have
Don't
a genetic
forget.
entropy
And the-
conversation at some point, I'm sure, but
Oh,
not
and
yeah.
tonight.
the breaking up of the continents and everything.
We'll have this
Don't
whole conversation over some future after shows. So thank you everybody for being here. Hope to see you again in the future.
All right.
see him. Jesus is Lord.